How is your fundraiser going this year? If it's anything less than amazing, it's time to talk to Shawn Murphy at FanPledge. No product to sell, nothing to deliver, and guaranteed results. Raise at least 10% more than your current donation based fundraiser, or it's free. Fun, fast, proven. Call Shawn at 903-948-7348. FanPledge. The champions are already on board. Are you? Band Yap is proudly sponsored by Troubadour Consultants. When it comes to planning group travel for your fine arts program, look no further than Troubadour Consultants. Whether you're organizing a major out-of-state trip or need top-notch accommodations for the state marching contest, John Mize and his team are ready to create a custom travel experience that meets your band's unique needs. As a family-owned, band director-run company, Troubadour understands exactly what it takes to make your trip stress-free and seamless. Plus, when you book a trip with Troubadour, they will sponsor a $500 college scholarship for a student in your band. Directors who book will also receive a free Mollard baton as a special thank you. Visit troubadourconsultants.com today to start planning your next trip with the experts who truly get it.
Now I just go around as grandpa band director and irritate people, I just drive around and listen for wrong notes, and I pull over and help them. They wouldn't let us take the bugles home. I played soprano, equivalent to trumpet. And they said, no, take some duct tape and take down your third valve on your trumpet. And if you do that, it puts it in the key of G. It lowers it a minor third. So you could practice your music.
Hello and welcome back to Band Yap. My name is Alexa Sanchez.
And I'm Jose Sanchez.
And we are here today to ask Mike because we have Mr. Mike Lunney. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Glad to be here.
Welcome to the yap, to the void of the band yap. So,
I made it to the big time.
Oh, shh.
I think it's more
awesome.
like we made it to the big time.
It's called Band Yap, not that. I mean, like you have your own podcast that's Ask Mike, like specifically geared towards you.
Nobody's trying to ask us anything. We're just yapping.
Yeah, and that's all right. It's a different niche.
Yeah, well, like since we're already talking about it, like how did the Ask Mike podcast get started?
That's a good question. I did like odds and ends with Intune Music here in Abilene, and so Tim Jones saw that. He thought, hey, why don't I toss him a couple of bucks and he can do this here for us and whatever. And then Derek Killam used to be, he was a radio DJ. And so we were talking one day and I said, I really miss the coffee room. Because back in the day, old man here, back in the day, you had the coffee room. And every Thursday morning in Abilene, all the head directors would go Thursday morning after first period band. We'd have coffee and we would play recordings for each other and talk about music and complain about our principals or whatever. It was a very communal kind of process. And there was no such thing as feelings. I mean, you better have thick skin and keep your butt against the wall. Because, if you said, if you play a recording, they'll just look at you and go, that sucks. So
now we pay people to tell us that.
Yeah, but they were serious. Like, you don't even know how to teach. What are you doing, Mike? Said, what is someone holding a gun to your head and forcing you to play this piece? So it was really cool in a way because we just went through that process. But we all got busy. And we connect now through social media and we connect now through Zoom podcast and things of that nature. And at that time, that didn't exist. And so we sat down and figured out this would be really cool and said, well, we've got to have a format. And so I said, how about, I get people who call and ask questions like, how do you sort your library? What do you do when clinicians come? What order of business do you take care of? So I thought, let's just call it Ask Mike and we'll just take email questions and we'll build formats around them. And now we have, I guess, over 60 episodes in the can. And we're trying to do it where it's very educational and informative and hopefully entertaining. I mean, so we kind of, dig at each other a little bit. But I would love for universities maybe to take it on and at least put it in their syllabus because it's listed as about everything for a whole school year is listed from how to clean drill to how to pick solo and ensemble music, etc. So we're hoping to build kind of a library for students to use. So that was the idea behind it.
We're actually listeners of Ask Mike. Mm-hmm. And so I thought one of the most beneficial ones specifically now it was about the job and like the job board and like finding the job and leaving a job. I listened to that one. I'm not
Yeah,
leaving my job, but I
right.
was like, this is good information for people, because how many band directors do we know who on their way out, they burn down the house?
Oh yeah. There's no doubt. I know there's one Facebook post up right now by a certain band director that threw his past school district under the bus, and it's like, why? What benefit do you derive from that? Sometimes it's better just to smile. And Lewis Thornton, a friend of mine who was the previous director at Wiley, he said sometimes you got to get along with people just because you have to get along with them.
Hmm.
You don't have to like them; you just have to get along with them. And that's a life lesson in itself, that old man speaking, but a lot of times youngsters don't understand that process. They're tied into their emotions and their feelings. And it's like, no, they don't care if you live or die. It's all right. You know, it's you just do your job and don't throw them under the bus. But you're exactly right. I enjoyed that little series.
Well, and we like listening to that pod. It was a reminder that um, our community is very small, and so is everybody else's. So like a principal's community is very small. Like everyone talks to everyone, and if you're going to burn down the house, like you better believe somebody else is going to hear about it.
But yeah,
It's the same thing with us. Like when you call a reference on somebody and they have like miss something, like a band event to go gig somewhere, you're gonna hear about it somewhere,
right.
and
And
that's a whole other line of issues.
and the quiet part out loud, if someone calls for a reference to me, and I don't particularly want to give them a good reference, I simply, if they worked for me, I simply say, well, they worked here from August 2002 until June of 2008. And so, well, you can tell me anything about them. I just repeat it like a prisoner of war
Mhm.
doing their social security number. And about the fourth time I say it, the principal gets the hint. Oh, I understand. And so it's like, thank you very much. I'm glad you understand. It's been a pleasure talking to you, sir or ma'am. You
Well,
know, because
and
if they burn a bridge, I'm going to burn them to the ground.
yep. Well, well, not only that, but then they are like people are very good about calling other people in the region.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know that's a thing where people will call somebody else and be like, "Can you give me the real lowdown on this person?"
Yeah. Most of my reference calls, I've not been on their list of reference people. It's just a superintendent that knows my ex superintendent that calls me and says, "Hey, man, you've been over there in West Texas. Do you know anything about this guy or about this girl?" And it's like, "Well, yeah, I do. So off the record, let's talk about it." Whether, and sometimes it's really good. Sometimes they went through a bad situation and it's not evident unless someone intervenes and explains it to the new superintendent and say, "This is why they kind of failed at their job at this particular school. It wasn't their fault. They're a really good musician. I'll vouch for them." Sometimes they need someone in their corner like that, and you can't say that in a regular reference type interview process.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes like the people that just don't know. And you have to educate the administrators just as much as you have to educate like the band staff. And
Hmm.
like how many administrators just don't, realize what we do down here.
No, they don't. And in a perfect world, all they need to realize is that you're doing everything to make them look good. That's all they need to realize. And if they want to come and watch a rehearsal, that's awesome. But this is maybe too old school, but I'd rather them just keep out of the way, and I'll introduce them at the spring concert and we'll applaud for them. And we'll kiss the ring, because we should, because they are working hard and make our life easier if we make them look good. And that's what I tell every student teacher I ever had was number one job is not teaching music, because that's the easy part. That's super easy to teach music. The hard part is getting them to realize that you need to make that superintendent and that principal, and especially the assistant principal and counselors, you've got to make sure they understand you respect them and you include them in every decision and process that happens. And it's just, I could rant on forever about that. But, sometimes we just get stuck in our own little corner of the universe. Because I've had a middle school band director one time, and we were sitting in a conference with our middle school principal, who later became my superintendent. And he just verbatim told her, you just need to understand the world does not revolve around your band hall. And boy, my butt puckered. It was like, oh God, we're all in trouble now. We're all in trouble. And he was correct, because the middle school band director was just pushing so hard that, we need to change all of this to accommodate my band. I'm sorry, but you're just a left tackle on the football team.
Mhm.
You are not the quarterback.
Well, we are in large part still public servants.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something that we often forget. Is like we are public servants.
Yes.
Yeah.
We preach to our band kids all the time. You are a representation of the Gatesville band program, or you're a representation of any program you're associated with. It's the same thing with us. We're representations of the ISD, and ultimately are, the principals of each campus, the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, our CFO, like all those people we're representations of. And so we acting a fool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're gonna find out.
Well, that's what I always tell the kids when we, like, especially the junior high kids, when we go on a trip. I always tell them, you have the name of the school on your shirt, and if somebody's upset with us, they're not going to call me. They're going to
That's
call
right.
the principal, and you better be ready for that.
Yeah.
What?
They're not going to call me.
So, well, now that we've derailed pretty hard on this one, no, but that's like good information. Like that is really good information. And like, I know for a fact that, Buzzy Music, one of the local stores that was here in Waco for a long time, used to do that I think on Saturday mornings, where they would have this was back when people could smoke inside,
like a yap session.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they would like drink coffee and smoke
cigars or cigarettes.
Yeah,
and we'd watch our marching shows on VHS cassettes.
Ooh, maybe that's what we should do.
We'd critique each other's recordings because that was a high tech in the day, man. That was high tech.
That's what we need to start doing. We need to bring it back.
That's an era that is lost now, is people in the press box with the camcorders. You know,
you got to get the right angle.
I know.
And also with that camaraderie, I mean, it was like the third Wednesday of every month was like potluck dinner. So all the band directors would get together and they'd bring their families and their kids, and all the kids would beat each other up in the backyard. And, the spouses would complain about their spouses, that were band directors, male or female. And the band directors who were band directors would just kind of talk shop like some kind of weird New York detective show. I don't know. But there was a certain sense of we had each other's back face to face, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've heard stories about that kind of stuff, and it's just like,
that's cool. Yeah.
Those were the good old days.
We do it virtually now.
Yes.
We don't do it face to face.
And we weren't as busy.
Yeah.
We didn't have indoor percussion, winter guard, state marching didn't exist at that time I'm talking about. So life was easier. I mean, it's not necessarily better. It was just easier.
No, different times.
Yeah.
Different times.
Well, Mike, can you tell us about yourself, your background, education, teaching experience?
Yeah, sure. I grew up a military brat. My dad was a tech sergeant in the Air Force, served in Nam. So I had quite the interesting upbringing. He never laid a hand on us, but he was very disciplined, and to the point of where we always made up our beds every morning and he checked them. And if it wasn't made correctly, he'd pull the covers back and just ask us, go ahead and make it correctly, please. And so I kind of grew up in that mentality. It wasn't an abusive thing. It was like, these are the expectations. Here's what you're supposed to do. And so even to the point of where I was at Twining Junior High in Grand Forks, North Dakota, because he was stationed. That's where all the B-52s were stationed at the time to fly over into Russia just in case. You know what I mean? So I saw the people play their instruments, and I was excited, and I was going to play clarinet because the band director played clarinet, and he played something that was beautiful. And so I thought, I'm going to play clarinet. So they passed out the forms, and I circled cornet because I thought that was a clarinet. And then we went to the music store, and my dad asked the music store owner there and said, he brought out a cornet, opened it up. And I said, Dad, that's not what I'm supposed to play. I'm supposed to play this, that. He goes, you need to be quiet. Your band director signed that form, and that's what you're playing. So then I went to do my master's work as a trumpet performance major. So isn't that funny? There was no argument. It was like the band director signed that form, Mike, and I'm sorry, but I'm not going to meet with them. That's what you're playing.
Man, those days are long gone.
Yeah. And on top of that, he was so frugal. He bought a horn for $35, It turned my hand green, so I had to wrap it in a handkerchief. But he told me, he said, if you learn how to play this next year, I'll buy you a good horn. And he bought me a box strad trumpet the next year.
Wow.
Nice.
So he was that kind of guy. I said, prove yourself and I will reward you. Don't prove yourself and we'll throw this thing in the trash. So
Wow.
that's how, so I grew up in kind of that era. And then my dad retired. And prior to that, I lived in Germany for 7 years. I'll date myself by saying West Germany because the East Germany did exist. The wall was there. We got to see the wall. And kind of a cool experience, kind of going to schools over in Hahn and Moorbach and Frankfurt. That was kind of awesome. But when we came back, we went through that process, retired. He retired. And then we moved to Iowa Park, Texas, for the simple fact that's where all my mom's sisters lived. Okay. And so we lived there, and Greg Miller was my band director and an amazing band, Phi Beta Mu Hall of Famer now. And he was a big influence in my life. So I graduated from Iowa Park, went to school at the famous Midwestern State University of Wichita Falls. Bob Jorgensen was my band director, but there was definitely some glory years in there for Midwestern State. We took a picture one day of all the band directors who graduated, music ed people who graduated in like an 8-year span that had either won honor band or had been at state marching contest, and there were 17 of us.
Wow.
Wow.
So it was kind of a cool moment. I hearken it kind of chase a rabbit a little bit, but we didn't have a football team. So it's really
Shucks.
cool. So we did
Shucks.
concert band all year long, which brings me and so I think that's one reason our marching bands did well is because we didn't have college marching band to ruin us. But what I did to kind of solve that problem, I saw the Phantom Regiment horn line in person in 1978. And I thought, I'm going to do this. And so a couple of years later, I was going to be a freshman in college, graduate in high school. And I asked Mr. Miller, said, where's the closest drum corps? And he said, it's in Hutchinson, Kansas. They're the Sky Riders. And I said, well, are they any good? Said, yeah, they're kind of up and coming. They're what we would call now as an open class corps. They were not the world class. Back then, they had different names. But they won like third place in open class. But at that time, in the top tier, there were 75 drum corps.
Whoa.
Isn't that amazing how the economics has killed drum corps in that? And then so what I did was I wrote a letter, said I'd like to join your drum and bugle corps. I'd like some information. Here's my phone number. My return address is on the envelope. I put Sky Riders, Hutchinson, Kansas. Went down to my post office. Jug Davis was the postmaster. Everybody knew the postmaster in this little town. And I go, Jug, what's the zip code for Hutchinson, Kansas? He got out this big book and he looked it up. It was prior to computers. He goes, I wrote it down, sent it off. 3 days later, John Simpson, who's a DCI Hall of Famer, was the horn instructor. And he called me and he goes, yeah, said, I saw your resume, the things you've done, whatever. Said, can you be up here Friday? I said, sure. And he goes, yeah, just bring $25 for money, a sleeping bag, and bring your trumpet mouthpiece. Said, you won't need your trumpet. We use 2-valve G bugles.
Oh, man. The glory days.
The glory days, yeah. Those big old fat G bugles.
How was it playing a G bugle?
Oh, it was amazing. Oh my God. You could not overblow a G bugle. And the ones we had were made by the King Company. And I think they were the best bugles ever made, partly because John Simpson, our horn instructor, went out and handpicked our line and helped design them. They were actually made by Binge. Most people don't realize that, but the Binge Company, if you buy Binge trumpets, it has the same bell as the K20 soprano. I know it's getting into the weeds here, but he had the only G 3-valve flugel I've ever seen in my life at that moment. Later on, drum corps went to 3 valves in the key of G. Then they finally, about 91, I think maybe, they evolved into band instrumentation, which is good and bad. I understand why they did it.
I've heard stories about the G bugles, and how you could just wail on them, but there was just there's nothing you could do. It was like you had to fight.
Well, the tuning. In fact, I'll scoot over here for a second. I've got a 45-year-old. I know it's not a video thing. It's a 2-valve K40 flugelhorn. So I took it up to Hutchinson this last weekend with me because I went up there. They had a camp and they're getting ready to go on tour and stuff. So I thought the kids would get a kick out of it. And the way we practiced our horns, and this will blow your mind maybe, they wouldn't let us take the the bugles home. I played soprano, equivalent to trumpet. And they said, no, take some duct tape and tape down your third valve on your trumpet. And if you do that, it puts it in the key of G. It lowers it a minor third. So you could practice your music. But I tell you what, also on those G bugles, man, I had a pretty good range on trumpet. I mean, I could play like a E above the staff. I was a good jazz lead player. And I took great pride in the fact I could play technique and I had some decent range. But on a soprano bugle, I could play a double C, man, and I could scream it. And there was no resistance. We had Schilke mouthpieces, and we'd sit around our apartments up there and take a drill, and one would hold the mouthpiece, and the other guy would drill through and remove all the inside shank. So you'd look through it was just like a straw, a straw with a cup on it. So that was my background, and I think in a lot of ways, good or bad, take it or leave it, being in drum corps is what honed my competitive spirit to a razor's edge, because we'd rehearse 8 hours to knock off a tenth of a point. Because back in those days it was the tick system, which meant the judge followed you around the field, and if they heard a mistake, they wrote a tick. And each tick was worth a tenth of a point. So they'd just right in your face and stare at you, get it 4 inches away from your eyes, and just watch you play. Waiting for you to make. And then they'd look at you and shake the clipboard and mark down and walk off. So it kind of honed my competitive spirit in that regard. And some of that's good, some of that's not good. It is what it is. I kind of, as I progressed as a human being, I think I was ultra competitive the younger I was. And in my last 5 years, even though we were going to state marching, it was like, yeah, where are we eating pizza at? It was not a it was not a huge issue for anybody. I don't think. We were just like, hey, we got a free trip, let's spend some money. So it has its good part and its bad part. So I'll leave it at that. But then I did that for 3 summers, and I was excited because the first year I was there, we were 14th. We'd just gone into what would now be called world class, and in the year before they were open class but made associate member, it's a long process. But all 75 corps would be at DCI World Championships. Okay, so then the top 12 didn't have to play till the 3rd day, and the associate members were 13 through 25. They played the second to last day. So all the rest of us battled it out in one long day from 6 in the morning to like midnight. And they chose the best 12 out of that to compete against the 13 out of the associate corps. And the best 12 out of that would compete in semis with last year's top 12 corps. So you had a seeded advantage like a tennis player if you were a top 12 corps. So we made 14th, did make finals. The next year came back, we made 10th place. We made finals for the first time in the corps history. Then the next year we made 12th, but my friends that were in the Crossmen that I still know, they're still so pissed off because we beat them in Miami by 1/10 of a point to make 12th place, and they were 13th place, and they were pissed. They even had a patch made for their corps jackets. It says "Screwed in 1983," and it has a picture of the Crossman cross with a screw in it. Oh. They had those in their corps jackets. So that was my drum corps experience. And then, of course, I graduated. Worked in Throckmorton a couple of years, little town between Abilene and Wichita Falls. Good town. They won, not under me, but they've won some state marching championships. They've done a really good job. And then I worked in Electra for a little town outside of Wichita Falls, and worked there. It started with like 17, 20 kids. Took 8 years, built it up to like 140. And we almost made it to state, but I'll speak in my defense. Back then, only 2 bands from each region advanced to area. An area only had 6 bands and only 2 advanced to state. So we were alternate to area 2 times in a row. But the bands in my region were Henrietta, state champion, Holiday High School, state champion, Olney High School, state champion. They were all in my football district. So it made my band good, but we never got across. Then I got hired at Holiday and went there, and I'll be honest, those kids took me to state marching. I mean, they were the defending state honor band under David Akins. They'd performed their concert that February. I took over in June. And so those kids were great. And they just kind of put up with me and took me on the trip with them and won a bronze medal. And then so after 2 years at Holiday, and I enjoyed it tremendously, but then I got the offer to go to Wiley, and it wasn't as good a band as I had at Holiday, but I did it for my son. because I wanted my son to go to what I considered in our part of the world the best public school was Wiley. Nothing against Holiday, but I wanted him to go to one school his entire career because I moved so much, and he did. He went from kindergarten, graduated as a senior, and so that was a good deal. And then I retired, and they put me out to pasture, and now I just go around as grandpa band director and irritate people. I just drive around and listen for wrong notes, and I pull over and help them. I don't know. I don't.
Well, I tell you what, Mike, anytime I've interacted with you or like I've heard of you or seen you in passing, you are one of the most like happy people and just like have like a very, very like, I don't know, I hate to say grandfatherly, but you have a grandfatherly like
I'll take that
demeanor.
as a compliment.
No, it's great. It's the same feeling I get from Bob Vetter.
Yeah, but it can also be called functional depression, but we won't go into that. We won't go to that depression. We won't go into that discussion. No.
It's a different podcast.
That's a whole different podcast. This Mike Lunney took Zoloft and electroshock therapy, but we're not going to go into there tonight.
This is what happens when you're a successful, head director. That's what it is. It's
yeah. It took medication and therapists to get me out of my mood. But no, overall, I'm just joking. Overall, I think I'm a real fan of servant leadership. I'm a real fan of community, of teamwork. I'm a real fan of being a part of things. I think the thing that drew me to band the most was the fact that I grew up as a military brat. And when you move so much, you build up this wall around you where you don't want anyone to be a really, really good friend. You have lots of acquaintances because you're going to leave them. When I got to Iowa Park, I bumped into a fellow trumpet player, Russell Shaver. And we ended up playing in junior high together, high school together, college together. I was best man at his wedding. He was best man at my wedding. We marched to the Sky Ryders together. He went to Phantom in '84 and did all their solo euphonium work. And we were best of friends. He died in a boating accident way before his time. But I think the idea that I could be a part of something, and I'd never been a part of something that had legacy or longevity. It was just, I just went to this school for 2 years and we were moving again, and you put all your toys in one box and dad puts it on the truck and we go to the next place where he's stationed, So that was my main thing. And I think I've carried that need with me and tried to transfer it to as many kids as I can. Even at Wiley, about 20% of our kids are Dice Air Force kids. So there's a natural connection. I understand what they're doing because we have all the B-1 bomber combat squadrons here in the C-130Js, and we're getting the new B-22 or B-21s. They're now building them, but we're going to get their 2 squadrons. So they're combat wings. So when 9/11 happened, all the planes left. Think about that. We're on the practice field and my band's marching, and all of a sudden you can hear them crank up over there, and all 3 B-1 bomber squadrons leave one after another, and then all the C-130Js all take off in formation, and all these kids just start crying, because they know that's their dads, some of it's their moms, and they know what's just happened, So that gets real deep and dark, but I think it helps being a military brat to understand how all that happens. So that's kind of my history of what I've done, and I've just tried to teach real hard and use music as a tool to make kids better people. And like I said earlier, teaching music's the easy part. That is so dadgum easy. You just read a book and just do it. You just memorize fingerings and pedagogy and you present it. That's the easy part. The hard part is making a child want to learn it. To psychologically convince them that, because in the old days, they could throw stands at us and yell at us and scream at us, and we just took it. We weren't as smart as today's kids. I'll say that outright. The kids today are much smarter, but you can't be that way to them. Otherwise, they'll just leave. They don't have to be there. And so you have to convince them that their vision is the same as your vision. And, once that's accomplished, then you can start growing the program. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, let me ask you this. Why West Texas? What makes West Texas?
You make it sound like I'm in Alcatraz or something.
No, like we've talked to some people like East Texas is East Texas behind the
Yeah,
pine curtain, and they're just like very interesting like ecosystems in their own areas. Like Central Texas vibe is very different than East Texas, which is very different from West Texas.
well, no
And
doubt.
so like what made West Texas so special to you?
Well, growing up, well, from seventh grade to high school and college in Wichita Falls, it's not really West Texas. It's, I would say, my Wichita Falls friends will kill me for saying this. It's really just Oklahoma. I mean, it's only 8 miles from the border. When I lived in Wichita Falls, I was only 4.5 hours from Hutchinson, Kansas. It was 6 hours to San Antonio. So we were basically Oklahoma South. You know what I mean? And I know I'll get flack for that. I know I'm going to get some when this drops, and that's okay because I think most of them would agree with it. But then when I went to Abilene, it was for Wiley. I took actually a pay cut. I wanted to go from Holiday to Wiley, but I wanted to be at Wiley because it was up and coming and it was just a good school system. And even Wiley, Abilene, if you're truly really in West Texas, they don't really consider Abilene West Texas. We're kind of the fringe of Central Texas. And we like to call ourselves West Texas. It makes us feel tougher, I guess. We buy handguns and whatever. We could be like these other guys. And in fact, when they rezoned, for the longest time, we were in Region 2 with Wichita Falls and San Angelo. So we really didn't have anything to do with Midland, Odessa. That was like Mars out there. Mad Max and the Thunderdome, man. Fires coming out of the ground. We don't bother those people. They do their own thing. But then I forget who was in charge of UL Music. Might have been Richard Floyd. But he called me and he goes, "Hey, we're restructuring all this. You're right on the border of three corners here. We could put you in Region 7. We could put you in Region, I guess it was Region 6, and maybe it was Region 16. I don't know, up into the Lubbock area." And I told him, this is my quote. I go, "Well, we kind of look and smell like West Texas. So why don't you put us in West Texas?" So we were the furthest east school in Region 6, which Region 6 goes all the way past Pecos. So it's a total, if you go from Brady to Pecos, it's 6 hours to drive across the region, you
Oh,
know?
Wow.
So it's just a different world. I mean, the people, they're tougher than all get out. You can if you happen to lose your temper and rail on a kid, yes, you'll apologize, but the kid will apologize for making you apologize. Or they'll say, "Whatever you do, Mr. Luney, just don't tell my mom. Don't tell my dad," because they knew they were going to get it twice as bad. And I'll tell you this another little story. I'll go in clinic a lot, and I stay at these quote hotels that are called man camps in West Texas. It's oil field workers.
mm.
So I'll go and you $40. It's a beautiful, impeccably cleaned room, and you get these old ladies cooking breakfast out of skillets, and it's really great. But the room is very Spartan. It's just white tile and white walls, and a shower and a towel and a bed and a TV, and there's nothing. There's no luxury to it at all. But what I'm getting to is you'll go to breakfast, and I'll be dressed as a band director. Everyone else has their full gear on because they're going out in the oil field, man. So I just wait. It just takes them a little bit, because they look around and they kind of look and they kind of look at me and they're trying to figure out what I'm doing there. And one will finally go, "Are you an engineer? Petroleum engineer? No, no. Are you a Texaco, Chevron? Are you an administrator? Nope, nope, no helicopter in the yard." Because some of those guys take helicopters, when they go places. And finally, they'll say, "Well, what are you doing here?" So, "I'm working with the Pecos High School band. I'm a band director, and I help them out." And this 300-pound oil field worker just goes, "Oh my God, I played clarinet in Randy Story's band, blah, 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 blah." And it's contagious. The whole table's talking about. So I guess the thing that's really cool, if I have to put any finger on what's cool about West Texas, there's not this, these kids do band and these kids do sports and these kids do ag. It's everybody does everything. So these guys that are 300-pound oil field workers that played center on the football team were a tuba player in Arion County when they were third place or whatever. It just amazes me how there's not any division whatsoever in that. It's just how we did things in our schools because there's so many small schools.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I enjoy West Texas. It's just a different sort of people.
Well, like One of my first job offers was with Bonnie Anderson and Gina Muela out of
Littlefield.
Littlefield.
Oh
Th-
yeah.
They offered me my first job and I turned it down, unfortunately. Just and I'll tell you what, this is also a courtesy I give to most of, like, almost all my applicants if I offer them a job, is that I'm like, I want you to think really hard and long about whether or not you want to be here, because Bonnie gave me that courtesy. Like, and congratulations to her, and Gina on their retirements. I mean, they are fantastic band directors. But like, I'm originally from outside Corpus Christi. And so going from Corpus Christi all the way up to Lubbock, that ain't no small trek.
Yeah, that's bigger than some states
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
territory.
And so, that was a courtesy that they gave me, even though they wanted me to be there. And eventually I turned them down. And that was something that, and I love Bonnie and I love
Oh yeah,
Gina, and they've
they're
been
both a
really good
treasure.
people. Yes,
Yes.
man. But like going out there and talking to them and like talking to their kids and stuff like that, you could just tell there's something different in the water, as soon as you start hitting West Texas, that the kids are just, I wouldn't say grizzled, but they just have this umph to them. Like there's just some hardness to them, and the fact that they are just hard workers.
Hmm. A lot of yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'ams. That they have a cultural belief system that extends through the whole town.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know.
Like if you sass someone, somebody else is gonna know about real fast.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's times that I've in my own band pro when I started at a new school where there's always that problem with the band and they're not listening or whatever. But in West Texas, and I don't know if this happens in other parts of the state, but some trombone player will stand up and say, "Guys, y'all need to shut up and sit down. He knows what he's doing. And if you don't shut up and sit down, you're dealing with me after class." And the trombone player will sit down. Every kid goes, "All right, Leonard has spoken." Yeah, I just passed the litmus test. For Leonard decided I knew what I was doing, and he made he was the alpha dog in the pack, and he told all the rest of the pack, "Shut up and sit down, and
It's
we're
always the
gonna be
trombone player.
banned."
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's always the trombone
yeah, they
player.
always cause the most trouble, but they're always the best leaders,
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
my opinion.
So you touched on this earlier as well. So the Sky Riders are riding once again.
We are, we are. I don't know. It's about I don't know. We had an alumni group, and then Jay Smith, who had been in the Corps same years I marched, he decided let's go ahead and reboot the Skyriders. And I guarantee I was the first naysayer because I said, "Man, that's just going to be too expensive. I don't know if we're talking starting from scratch." When I drove up to Hutchinson this last weekend, I'd not stepped foot and driven into town in 43 years. Think about that. And most of our alumni are in their late 50s and older because the Corps dissolved in 93. So there's been a lot of water going to that bridge. So we were able to, and that's been a good thing though, because like our attorney that we have, one of them is the lead attorney at Texas Tech. We have guys that work our business portion and our tax that are CPAs and full IRS certified. They've had careers, they've had businesses, they're retired. And so they're like me, they have disposable time and hopefully a little bit of disposable income to help out because we're not trying to push kids through college. And you know what I mean? It's like, hey man, I can afford to help out a little bit. So we got enough people together and we fielded a core now. It's we're doing it very gradual to be smart with our money, but it's 75 performers. We could use a few extra color guard if we had someone out there that wanted to do guard. But we're full uniformed, full equipment, contras, our convertible tubas. I just still call them contras from the G Contra days. I don't know if is that what they call them,
I
Jose?
believe they're so
Yeah.
called.
Okay, all
Contras.
right. I'm out of the loop on that because I know Pecos uses them, but I've never heard them call them anything but tubas. When they use their contras, so I've just never heard a director call them contras in person. But we've got all that taken care of. The kids' dues are $750, and that gives them room and board at Hutchinson Junior College in the dormitories. And we're doing a big 3-show tour, so we're sticking our toe in the water. So we're getting these kids and we're billing it on. We want to grow the core, but we also want to give kids a moment to participate in DCI without a lot of financial and emotional input. So you can put that on your resume when you want to try for the troopers. Say, well, I was in the Skyrider Horn Line and I did this and we went on a little bitty tour. That speaks volumes to another corps when someone's had even a taste. But our goal is to go, we're a sound sport in DCI. You have to be a sound sport when you start again or when you start. And so we have some woodwind players. And yeah, it's okay, I guess. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, you know,
but we want to go open class. I think open class is where we're going to land.
yeah. Well, like that was something I wanted. Okay, how can I say this? My program was very successful, and like me being exposed to any DCI stuff was very few and far between. And so, based out of Corpus Christi, there wasn't really a corps near us. And by the time I was interested in doing that, I was in college, and like I came from a poor background, and trying to do those types of things was very, very hard. Now, if there was like Skyryders, which was a startup that said, hey, dues are $750, you better believe I would have found $750 to make that work.
Yeah. And even back in the day, our core dues were about $400 a year, but we had to pay for our housing when we went up there. But you know, I worked at a pizza place. I was able to pay for my college and my Skyryders at about $1 over minimum wage, and pay for a car and insurance. And it's just, it's sad what we'll go on a rabbit hole maybe, but it's sad what our economy's done with college. I mean, my son's degree for 4 years was $80,000. Mine was $8,000. Same amount of hours at a state university. And it's something that it needs to be looked at. But, you know, we could actually do core. In fact, when the 2 or 3 years before I came to the Skyryders, they used to compete in the Kansas drum corps circuit. And there were 20 drum corps in Kansas. You know, were they good? No, not all of them, but there were some good ones, you know, and it was a big deal, you know, but through what happened, DCI formed in 72. And then we brought in it used to be you performed in your region, and kind of like state marching nationwide. You performed in your region. Then if you won your state championship, then you could get donors and you'd go all the way to Chicago and you do finals, but you had no shows in between. It was like a Disney trip. And so that's how it was. And we went into this full blown, you know, cover the nation. And my first year in the Skyryders, I think, oh my God, we probably went 3,000 miles. We went all up the West Coast, across the north into Canada, down the East Coast, all the way into Florida. You know what I mean? So we just traveled because you got paid as an associate or a DCI corps more than the other corps. So we made our money by performing. So yeah, you're right. I wish there was more opportunity, but I understand the economics. Just for our little 3-stop tour that's going to last 10 days, it's $18,000 for buses. Yep. I mean, that's just buses. That's not feeding kids or dealing with anything else. That's $18,000 just for buses. And Lord knows what those $1.3 million budgets are for those big boys, you know?
Well, that's almost the way of the college football or college athletics, because I mean, what the Southwest Conference was just like specifically Texas. And then, you know, Southeast Conference, then the Big 8 was like Oklahoma and like Kansas and
Nebraska.
Arkansas. Yeah, Nebraska. And like those kind of things have died away because of the almighty dollar. I mean, which is really sad because you saw all these, you know, in-state rivalries like go away because of like, hey, we need to make money.
Yeah. Rip the Pac-12.
Oof.
I tell you, the NIL, it was interesting to me that the school that spent the most on NIL going into this fall in football was Texas Tech. There's a lot of rich oilmen, and believe me, I've used and abused most of them for donations. You know, it's like, hey, I need money for this. Oh yeah, sure, we can write it off. Are you a 501c3? Yeah, get with my accountant. And so they have ponied up the money, and Texas Tech, in a couple of years, they're going to be a contender because they are buying the best talent. It's like buying top shelf liquor at the bar. You know, they're buying the best there is to come into town. And before we couldn't compete, you know, because the money was still being spent, but it was under the table. It was illegal, but everyone knew it was happening.
Nobody did that.
Oh yeah.
Never.
Yeah. That's why Alabama wants to change it back, because they were successful because they were the best crooks of the entire football world. But now it's all in the open, and now Alabama's going, well, no one wants to come here now, so
Tuscaloosa, where's that?
yeah,
Man,
yeah. So we'll see how
Mike's
it all
saying the
floats
things,
out.
man. Mike is saying the things.
Even though I'm a big Nick Saban fan, I love the guy, but it is what it is. I mean, it's if your highest paid employee is a football coach, you're actually a football franchise with a school on the side.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Imagine if they did that for band directors.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at Gatesville, you're getting like, I don't know, 200,000, aren't you?
Oh yeah,
Something like
That's
definitely.
what I
that.
thought. And, clothing allowance and travel allowance and a cell phone package. And yeah, I know how it goes for you big boys.
Yeah, the clothing allowance bought the
Yeah.
Monsters Inc. shirt he's
Yeah,
wearing right now.
That's exactly what happened. So,
That's awesome.
you really created something special at Abilene Wiley, or Wiley. That was next to Abilene.
Yeah.
Can you? Well, you and I talked, and apparently Wiley is more of a community that is separate from Abilene. As Abilene has grown, it's kind of incorporated Wiley into it. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
you've explained it well. There's no chamber of commerce, no mayor, no police force. It's just a community, and Abilene has completely surrounded it now. But it was a good clientele, and I inherited a good program. Lewis Thornton had been to the state marching contest, had a sweepstakes band. He was having some severe health problems, some cancer, spinal tumors, things like that. So things got shaky his last 2 years. It happens. You know what I mean? So there was some rebuilding to happen a little bit just because of things beyond his control. Um, but yeah, it was a real good school for me. I mean, they gave me everything I needed. I never had an excuse. And that was told to me as a quote. So we're going to give you what you need to make it to state marching, um, as long as you give us a football band. And so we'll give you all the other stuff so you can do all your stupid band director stuff. And that was a quote. And we shook hands on it. And they said, we don't want to hear any excuses. Scheduling, budget, said, nope. If you don't get to state marching, that's your fault. And that's the pressure cooker I lived in. We were always Abilene Wiley. The other Wiley is the real Wiley. That's what we always called it. It was Abilene Wiley, the real Wiley. So now they're like what, 2 6A high schools or something like that. We've just now made it to 1 5A high school. So they're always going to be bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which brings me to, I mean, what were all the things that you did while you were at Wiley?
As far as with band culture, the first thing I did was really instill a leadership program, which I've taught leadership camps. Oh gosh, now for like 20 years. It's something I pulled off of my plate. I've had like 10 or 12 people call and say, hey, can you come out? No, it's something I've decided not to do anymore. I'm going to stick to clinicking, judging. When you're 62 and you have 3 grandsons, it's like, I don't know, there's different priorities, I suppose. But that helped a lot. As far as just success, I'll tell you this right off. The only second division of Wiley's varsity band in 47 years belongs to Mike Lunney. My first year in at Wiley, we made a 2-2-1 on stage because I overprogrammed. It was purely my fault. And so I kind of smugly laugh about it, said, oh my God, out of 46, 47 years, they've had a sweepstakes band except for that one year. I'm lucky they didn't get rid of me, but yeah, so we've had a lot of sweepstakes, went to state marching 6 times total, 5 times in a row before I retired. And that was kind of the competitive side, the pressure cooker that kind of convinced me to retire. I'd hate to say that, and my kids from band hear that, but you make it once, it's like climbing the mountain. Then it's like king of the hill. Everybody's trying to shoot you, and then you have to stay up there. By the time it's the 3rd time, it's twice as much pressure. The 4th time, it's unbelievable. The 5th time, the school's planning a school holiday the day of state marching. It was on the calendar. There will be no school on the day of 4A state marching, prelims and finals, because our band's going to be there. And it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if we're going to be there. Now it's on the calendar. But they did a good job for me, and I had a good clientele, a good mixture of kids, good parents. Very few, every school you have a couple of parents where you call them with a problem and can you help me out with your child? And they'll literally say, well, I believe that's your problem and hang up on you. I mean, that's happened, but it was so nice to call a lot of this clientele I had at Wiley because they'd go, what do we need to do at home to help you? And it was, we always had problems, but we always found solutions. And so we grew the band. It kind of fluctuated. Did a whole bunch of Disney trips. That was a lot of fun. Made my son a Disney addict now. He's 32. And I think he went to Disney like 14 times as a kid because it was always with bands. You know, but yeah, so it was a fun time. But I don't know if there's anything super super special. What makes me realize things in perspective looking back is when I bump into old alumni and they never mention state marching. They never mention first divisions. They always mention, "Hey, Mr. Lunney, have you heard from so and so? Yeah, I heard he was having trouble. I think he had a divorce, or his dad went to jail, or he's a CEO of a really important company right now, or he's a squadron commander in the Air Force, or he's a lieutenant commander in the Marines." It's discussions like that. So I find that at the time when I was in the trench, that I thought the most important thing some years was the music, which it is important. And what was the most important was winning hardware, and it is important. But as I got older and now that I'm retired, I can look back and go, man, I really missed the boat in my first 12 years of teaching. That it was not about the trophies, it was not about first divisions, it was about relationships with kids, and making them feel like they could be a successful person.
Yeah, and I know people are like really, really into this. Um, I don't put our names on any trophies, any band director names on any hardware that the band earns. I just let the kids sign the back of the trophy.
That's pretty cool.
Like they're up in the band hall, but they're blank.
I
It
think we
says
did
their
it.
year on them.
I think we did it as tradition. I don't know, but I think one of the coolest one is Loy Studer, who's at Ryder for a number of years. He's now at the new Legacy High School in Wichita Falls. You'd go into his band hall, and it was like sweepstakes trophies from 1964 to the present. But every trophy was faced outside because the culture was that we are in the trophies for the people outside the band hall.
Mm-hmm.
And so the kids knew that, and they signed the backs. Plus, I could see the names of their brother or sister. But in West Texas, Plainview has had an amazing band program, and I've gone in there to kind of see things, and I'll see like a freshman trumpet player, and I'll just go, and they have all these composite pictures, all the way back to like 1930 something. I'll say, point out some of your relatives. Oh yeah, this is my great grandfather. This is my grandfather. This is my grandmother. This is my mother. This is my father. These are my sisters. And it's like this whole legacy of Plainview around them. And they had the longest streak of UIL first divisions in marching since the inception of UIL until about 6 years ago, and they made it two. But, it had to end sometime. All streaks end.
Yeah.
But, they had like 60 something straight first divisions, in marching. So it's kind of a West Texas thing. I think with West Texas too, for most towns, there's one town with one high school. And that makes a big difference because it's very polarizing in a good way. Where instead of a wonderful place like Frisco that has like 13 5A bands or something, Arcady.
And they're building like
Add
two
more
more
all the
right
time.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm very respectful of what they do, but there's something about being, living in Holiday and being the, if you're a guy, you're the band guy. You actually get mail that doesn't have your name on it at your house because it was winger uniform or winger stands or something. And they just, oh, that's Lunney's. They'll throw it in his box. So there's something about that it's a different vibe. But I'll get off the West Texas thing. But I just have enjoyed West Texas.
Yeah. No, we love it. I mean, that's what we're here to do is yap about all those wonderful things because like talking to Brian Sowers, who's like a fantastic band director for him for the longest time, West Texas was like what Arlington?
I think he said anything outside of Fort Worth
was West Texas for him. And like me being like a young educator, I knew two things. I knew Central Texas and I knew South Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And like South Texas is different from the Valley. and there's differences in like the cultural aspects, there's differences in the band culture aspects, and there's just a different thing within the communities from different parts of Texas. And hearing those things about West Texas and what makes West Texas so special is something that needs to be highlighted. And who better to do that than one of the biggest legends of West Texas, Mike Lunney?
Oh, well, I tell you what, I'm on the shoulders of many. There was a time a long time ago when West Texas was the epicenter of music in Texas. That's hard to believe, but back in the 50s and 60s, Phi Beta Mu was founded at a Texas Tech band camp. O.T. Ryan and all those guys were just amazing musicians. And I remember Charles Nail had the state honor band when 5A was the biggest class, and the state honor orchestra the same year, and performed both concerts at TMEA. Think about that for a second. That's some guts right there. And they were the ones literally that were the innovators. And then what happened was the rest of Texas, that I-35 corridor, kind of caught fire with all the team teaching and so forth. And they caught fire, and all respect to them, they dominated. And I think that corridor's dominated over everybody. And now, we enjoy what we do, but the Charles Nails, the Bill Woods, the Gary Garners, the Charles Trailers. I mean, there's this whole list of Phi Beta Mu Hall of Famers that have impacted my life. You know what I mean? Because I was young and dumb enough to at least call them, and say, hey, I think I'm a pretty good trumpet player, but I really suck as a band director. What can you do to help me? Well, I don't know, Mike. It might be kind of pointless, but here's a couple of things, and those guys really kind of shaped my life, as far as what I did. So I'm really beholding to the whole West Texas landscape of Amarillo, Lubbock, Midland, Odessa.
Well, for a real long time, like West Texas A&M was like a huge music education, and still is a huge, is a huge music education school. But like, I know that lots of band directors came through that system, and that West Texas like education, and you can tell the impact of West Texas that it's had on the rest of Texas music education. Prime example, you said Phi Beta Mu, but also Tau Beta Sigma.
That's right.
Do you know about that?
I did not know about that.
Yeah,
I had a different question.
So Tau Beta Sigma actually originated it at Texas Tech.
I did not know.
Yeah.
That's why it's Tech Band Sorority. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that on the pod, but that's
it was at the time. When I went to school, you had Kappa Kappa Psi, and it was a fraternity sorority. Now they've kind of gone together, which I think is better.
Where was ATSSB founded?
It was founded in my middle school band hall.
That's what I thought, and that's why I wanted to ask.
Yeah, so once again,
it's Wiley West Middle School. There's two feeders, east and west now.
That rich history that, like, if you don't know about it, like, it's just like there's a lack of appreciation for that.
Yeah.
I mean, so like Phi Beta Mu, West Texas. You're talking about, ATSSB, West Texas. So how involved were you in that? With the founding?
That was actually, I'd already started teaching. I'd done 2 years in Throckmorton. My first year in Electra, my third year of teaching was the formation of ATSSB. And I just remember being on the phone with, Lewis Thornton, who's that time at Wiley, and a couple of John Gibson out of the Lubbock area. And these guys just kind of trying to figure out what we were going to do. Don Theote, all these guys, they were the charter members, and they sent out postcards because there was no internet. No internet, So they sent out postcards, and we joined for $25 a piece. And the first all-state band for ATSSB was not very good. It was okay, but it was a glorious moment, because I was at the TMEA meeting when we made a proposal to start a TMEA 1A, 2A, 3A band to compete under the umbrella of TMEA. And a certain very high profile, I'll not say the name, got up on stage, and he said, I've got two things to say. And he held up a piece of music with a Bugs Bunny on the cover. And he said, this crap will never be played at an all-state concert. And he threw it down. And he said, and I make a proposal that all CCC middle schools be included in the 1A, 2A, 3A all-state band. And it was very smart on his part. Even I grew up with a very political bent to how my dad navigated things. And right when he said it, I thought, crap, he's a genius because he just killed the whole bill right there because everyone voted against it because we knew we couldn't compete against Richardson ninth graders. We just couldn't do it. Those kids were all taken privately from Dallas Wind Symphony players, and we just couldn't compete with them. So then after that, Kenneth Griffin and a couple other guys went over to the Scottish Rite, and they said, we're just going to start our own thing, make it happen. And by God, they did. They made it happen. And then years later, TMEA reached out, kind of an olive branch, and said, we would like to make ATSSB under the umbrella of TMEA, and they almost turned it down. ATSSB membership almost said, no, we still want to do our own thing. And man, I fought really hard because I was on a few different committees. I said, do you realize all it's going to take is one lawsuit? We have no legal standing. We have no clientele of attorneys. We have no precedent. So they would kill us in one fell swoop. Said we need to be under the TMA umbrella if they'll let us keep our ATSSB moniker. And at that time, it was 1A through 3A. And then later on, talk about West Texas, y'all were in the ATSSB All-State bands, weren't you?
I was not. Jose
I was.
Okay. And at one time, it was 1A, 2A, 3A. And then our friend, Bonnie Anderson, when I was in Region 16, because I lived in the same house, but my school's in 3 different music regions over the course of my career at Wiley. But I was in Region 16, and she goes, I'd like to make a proposal through the MAC committee and through TMEA and HSSB that we start a 1A, 2A tracking system and a 3A tracking system at the time. And I was going to lose, at the time, as a 3A school, I said, we're going to lose like 20 chairs out of our area by doing that. But I co-signed the bill with her. And we took it down there and pushed it through, and they did that. And then they had to figure out what to do with double reads, and because that gets real complicated, and they can cross over. And I think it's just a matter of time until they're going to diversify even further. Because I'm here to tell you, quiet part out loud again, my friends. 4As are not small school. I mean, I had a staff of 5. I had a private lesson program. I had 3 concert bands. I had marching techs. I had 3 universities within 20 miles. And it was unfair, to compete in that. And rightfully, Wiley's finally grown to 5A, but we were already making the transition to TMEA my last 2 years to say we're going to leave ATSSB behind because our kids need to have this to grow further, So it's and it came up to a vote one time. I don't know if y'all remember that, if y'all are too young, but John Young was the president of ATSSB, and we had a vote whether to cast 4A out the door. And the ATSB membership voted at convention and decided to keep us simply for 2 facts. Most of the membership, most of the membership was from 4A, and a majority of the money from auditions came from 4A. Because I would have 80 kids try out, and Throckmorton would have 2. So if you toss 4A out in the cold, we would just all go to TMEA, and it would probably crush at the time ATSSB. But I think it's a matter of time until maybe we open it up to where there's a 1A. Of course, I live in the 1A capital of the world.
Yeah.
What's difficult for us is that we fight that battle even as a 4A because our enrollment is only
the enrollment is so wide.
Yeah, because I think the enrollment goes from 545 to 1299. And we at Gatesville are like at 755
on a good day.
Yeah.
If someone doesn't sneeze in the wrong direction.
Yes.
Yeah, I was the big fish in the pond. We were 3A, then UIL tossed everybody an extra A when they started 6A. And so we became 4A, but we're still 3A. But we were always, when I first came to Wiley, we missed going up a class by 2 students. And we chased that number for 19 years. And then when I retired was right when they went into up 1 class. They finally at 1,200. They went from 623 all the way to 1,200, and they just chased that number the whole time. So we had the luxury of being the big fish in the pond, and it was detrimental to our kids at the time. They I don't know, it wasn't in our best interest to be beating up on children in the candy store, because our kids are all taking. I mean, there was one year I had 4 All-Staters, and I was taking them down in the van, and I was laughing. I go, you realize all 4 of you, I've never heard you play any of your etudes? I'm just the van driver. I'm going to take you to the hotel. I'm going to give you the meal money. I've never heard any of you actually play your instrument on the All-State Trout music because they took from the professors of music from the three universities, just amazing musicians that knew more about clarinet than I would ever dream of, and so forth. So we were in that. We were a 5A school hiding in 4A.
Yeah.
That's what it
And
amounted to.
there are still several of those
Yep.
out and about.
Yeah.
Well, you've had some pretty prestigious students come out of your programs. One of them being the one, the only Luke McMillan, the king of small school marching band.
Yeah. He just works 2 doors down from me, from where I'm at right now. Yeah. He's amazing. He was a junior or actually a senior trumpet player my first year at Wiley.
And then our dear friend, Mr. Wiley Gore.
Yeah, he was named after the school. No, I'm kidding. No, they actually moved here. They had Wiley, then they moved to Wiley. We always tease him about that. Said, I don't know, but yeah, he was a drum major for me in 2002, and we were fifth in state marching. Great kid. Made clarinet on an all-state band. Then the next year, there was this totally freaky shakedown in the clarinet room where all the letters got confused and he was obviously one of the top 3 players in the region, and he ended up like 42nd chair, and there was nothing we could do about it. You know what I mean? It was like, it's done. We can't get all these players back again. It's everyone stuck to their guns in the room and said no, but I don't know. They just mixed up the letters. And what happened was, I'm not going to throw the person under the bus because he's a really important person to me, but people came in late on the day of and said, oh no, I've got this kid I left off the list. They'd already printed out the letters with the kids and given it to all the monitors. And so they entered it on the computer. And of course, what does it do? It randomizes the list again. So everyone was trying out for somebody else that day in the clarinet room.
That's crazy.
Every kid had a different letter than their actual letter. And that's just what happened that year. It was just human error, but that's my saddest memory about Wiley Gore in that. And it was cool to judge him in sight reading. It's the first time I've actually judged his band, got my picture made with him. And he's a good young man.
Yeah, we like him all right. We had to tell him to stop having kids though.
Well, go forth and prosper. His family believes in that.
You gotta buy that boy a TV.
That's right. I told him so I can draw you some pictures how all this works. If you're not sure what's making this happen, I can draw you some pictures and take pictures on my phone. I'll send it to you, Wiley, and you can. But no, and Paige is a wonderful lady, and of course, he's trying to. I think it's one more, and he has a basketball team.
Yes, he has 4 kids. I think they're done though,
and they're all boys, so
Yeah.
Yeah, and they all have like different. They all look the same, but they all have different hair color.
Yeah. They do.
Yeah, that's kind of a recessive gene thing.
Yeah, it's just like interesting.
Does your band budget feel like it's stuck on repeat? Same old fundraiser, same week results? It's time to change the rhythm. FanPledge with Shawn Murphy brings the beat back with fun, fast, and effective fundraising. No product sales, no deliveries, and if you don't raise at least 10% more than your current donation-based fundraiser, it's free. Call Shawn at 903-948-7348. FanPledge, the choice of champions.
So, what was something that you wish you knew as a young director, and what would you recommend to new directors?
I would think from not necessarily me in particular, because my college band director is really good about prepping us for this, but he just literally told us that 95% of what you do has nothing to do with music as a band director. Nothing at all. Said 5% of your life is going to be teaching music. The other 95% is everything else that happens. And I think that happens poorly for a lot of young people coming out of college, that they're not really prepared for that. They think that let me back up a second. I think it's because most of them grew up in a bubble where their band was really good. So the director stood on the podium and he conducted, and some kid might chew gum and might be asked to spit it out. And we finish the rehearsal and we leave, and they get their first gig at like a 2A school somewhere, and there's kids climbing the walls and they're throwing, things across the room, and they just think kids are supposed to behave because they're in band. But 95% of what we do is just psychological counseling, paperwork, secretarial, accountant. It's just all that other stuff, which there's nothing wrong with that, but man, it should be nice if they'd let you know that from the get-go. And so my college band director, we all had to take senior conducting if we were a music ed major, but we never picked up a baton. At our lesson, he just went through 1 week how to deal with band parents, the next week how to devise a budget, the next week how to rehearse a marching show, how to scale out your rehearsals to where you get the most impact for it. So he did all that, knowing that he said, the music's the smallest thing you do, and if you do all this other stuff right, and I think this is a true quote, if an average group of kids just plays through the music over and over and over and over again without any instruction whatsoever, they'll make a 3 or a 2. You have to teach them into a 1, and you have to teach them into a 4 or 5. So he goes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to teach so that these kids that are smart kids can make first divisions if they choose to do so. And I think that was probably one of the wisest quotes he ever gave us. And I've kind of lived by that.
So if you could build any one college course for kids to take, what would it be?
I would call it a band culture and the demands of a working band director and who they need to hire to do it. And I'm not looking for a gig because I've got plenty to do, but they should hire some old retired fart like me to come in on Tuesday and Thursday at 9:30 in the morning till 11 and present this course with my own syllabus, because I've got the file cabinet full of stuff that I can give to a teaching assistant. They can copy it all off and we can make a syllabus. And it's not to throw my other great friends under the bus, like Phil Clements, who's an amazing band director. He was a freshman at Owl Park when I was a freshman at Midwestern. We came through the same high school, and we marched in Sky Riders together when he was 14. But sometimes those college guys, holy crap, they know exactly what's going on, and sometimes, holy crap, they don't know a thing about what's going on. Not a dadgum thing, you know. Put them behind a bus and tell them to drive with a CDL, and they'll just have a nervous breakdown because they're too busy studying Percy Granger, And granted, that's their field, but they should not be giving that course to music ed majors because they know nothing about it. It'd be like me teaching organic chemistry. It doesn't make sense, So that's what I would do if I had control of the world.
Yeah. Well, and that's why like some of my best professors at Baylor were ones who had spent like 15 years or more inside the classroom before they got into like college education.
Oh, yes.
And it was just like, that makes sense. Like, hello.
Well, my supervising professor when I was student teaching was not one of the band faculty. And I actually very much so appreciated that because out of everyone in the School of Music, he taught public school for the longest amount of time. And basically, when he was assigned to be my supervisor, they almost apologized. I was like, "This is great. I love him." And I think he doesn't he have like 30 years of public school teaching or something like that.
Who was it?
Dr. Alexander.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And by far, I feel like I had a better experience than I could have, just because not everyone understands the public school setting or what band directors are having to deal with, but they're the ones that are there coaching you on how you're doing, which is confusing.
Oh no, that was a blessing. It's like, the infamous, famous Dr. Eric Wilson. I met him when he was an all-state saxophone player in Haskell, Texas, 20 miles north of here. And then he went to ACU, got his bachelor's. He was the band director at Clack Middle School. Then he went back to ACU, got his master's, then went to, I think, University of Michigan, then came back as the band director at ACU. And so, if I call him, it's funny, if you're listening, because I'll call him, Dr. Eric Wilson, Baylor University Director of Bands. I'll go, Eric, it's Lunney, cut that crap out. He goes, oh, it's Mike. What's going on, man?
He told us a story about when
he's a great man.
Yes, he is. He used to teach lessons for Bonnie.
Yes.
On one day, and this is when I believe his wife was in grad school. He would teach saxophone for Bonnie, and then he would drive and go to like Midland or something, and then he would just do that every single week. He would like drive 6 hours between lessons.
So that makes sense to me because that's just 2 hours. I mean, I'll drive to Pecos and do a band rehearsal. It's 260 miles there, 260 miles back on the same freaking highway. I-20 just goes the whole way.
He was telling us his route of like where he would go on each day. It's crazy.
Yeah, and you just speed all the time. I mean, in
Well,
this part of the world, you set your cruise on 85 miles an hour. The DPS will just, as long as you're not swerving, they'll just blink their lights at you, and it just means be safe.
Yeah.
yeah, that's the other thing is like people like will complain is like, oh my goodness, we spent an hour on the bus to go to a football game.
Wow.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
you don't say anything to the West Texas folk.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
They will come after you. They're
Yeah,
like, it took 3 hours to get to a district football game today.
Yeah, my final year, all the schools in our district were at least 3.5 hours away. It was a 7 hour round trip to every single, because no one in town, because we had that stupid Division 1, Division 2 thing, and we were on an island. I don't know, just, and when I first came here, it was smaller schools. So I don't know the geography. All of the towns that the schools were in my football district, where the longest one was an hour and a half away, and we thought we were dying. We thought we were going to die. Now I looked back on them and went, man, that was nothing. Because every other school's 20 miles away. We would just go 20 miles and do a football game. But yeah, it's a different thing out here. It's where schools buy charter buses.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
we went down to State Song Ensemble, and our kids were in our, our yellow dogs, our yellow limousines, as some would say.
You poor folk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our
No
band
oil money,
kids-
no oil money.
Our band kids are like, oh my goodness, that one's a charter bus with a bus front. I mean, like, and of course it says like Pecos.
Yes, it's either Pecos or Seminole or Littlefield or Sundown. When your mascot's the Roughnecks, you're in West Texas.
Yep.
It's
And
named
so-
after local oil workers.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, I had to explain to the kids, I'm like, you do understand that their district football game is like 3 hours away. They're like, are you serious? I'm like, yes. Whenever they go somewhere, they have to be as comfortable as possible because they're going to be
on that bus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of those trips are so extensive, you'll send a van load of drivers ahead of you that morning so they can check into a hotel and take a nap.
Yeah.
And they trade out with the other drivers to come home, and then they stay in the other bed in each of the double rooms and sleep, and they come back in the morning in that same van. They just switch out keys. So it's a different world. It's a different world. Plus there's more money to burn. And you got some of the schools, I know schools that have 700 kids in them, and they draw all the mineral rights and oil and wind turbines and everything off of 3 complete counties for one high school. So they give in excess of $100 million a year back to the state. So you know how they get around it? They destroy the entire school system every 4 or 5 years and rebuild the entire thing because the state will not take your buildings. So they'll tear it down to the studs, level it out to the foundation, build a new middle school, and the next year they'll build a new high school, they'll build a new elementary, and they'll just keep it in rotation because they'd rather have cutting edge technology 3-year-old schools than to sit on top of 60-year-old schools because they don't have the money, And if for those listening that want, because I know the job market's kind of tough right now, if they want to work in West Texas, I know jobs where a first-year teacher can make $65,000 a year as a first-year teacher, have a 3-bedroom brick home for $300 a month with utilities paid, have no payment for insurance or prescription copay, and a matching 401k up to full amount you can put into a Roth as a first-year teacher. So if a young man or woman could leave Baylor and survive in the Thunderdome of West Texas for 5 years, they could leave with $250,000 in a cash management account, high yield, and all they'd have to do, listen to this is Mike Lunney Finances coming out, all they have to do is invest that with a financial advisor and never touch it again, and they'll retire with over $6 million.
Jose, do you want to move to West Texas?
That's all it takes because they've got time on their side, man. They've got time on their side. I don't have time on my side. I'm on the end of that process, But yeah, they're paying because, if you want people to live on Mars, you pay for people to live on Mars.
I don't have enough lotion in the world to make sure I'm not ashy.
Your elbows get ashy.
Yeah.
We'd have to pour oil in the bathtub and just submerge it every other day.
Yeah, pretty much. I tell you, we went down to Corpus earlier this week, and I stepped out of the car and I go, "Oh, I don't miss this."
Yeah, that's something I can't do. I lived in Florida for a year. I hated it. All it was bugs and humidity and crappy weather. Give me 120 degrees in Lubbock on the high plains any day. I'll take that.
Yeah, I was like, man, my hands are starting to swell. And it's because the humidity is like at 99.9%.
Yeah.
You're literally swimming.
And then you work all day, then you have to take a shower before you go somewhere. And if you have to go somewhere else, you got to come home and take another shower
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
it's
all your
bad.
clothes are soaked through.
Yes. Well, like I didn't read like everyone back home has like a lot of hair product in, and I never understood why. And I did the same thing. And it's because the humidity is so high, you'll frizz out like real fast. And it's like, I get it now.
Luckily for you, you don't have frizzy hair.
No, well, that's all another thing. So, Mike, with you being in the profession as long as you have, and you're now, enjoying your retirement and still staying plenty busy, what are some of the
Definitely.
biggest changes you've seen in the profession?
I think the biggest change, there's so many changes, but I think the biggest change in working with band directors and with students is the level of stress is just doubling up every year. I mean, it's absolutely amazing how stressed out these directors are, how stressed out, you know, the kids are. I mean, you got kids in seventh grade that are told to take Spanish 1 so they don't have to take it in high school, so they can take advanced calculus their junior year and have a associate's degree by the time they're. How ridiculous. In fact, I'll tell you this, my son wanted to take a lot of those advanced courses. I told him no. Said, I'm not going to pay for that. So I'll pay. I'll help you. He's worked hard. He earned his way through. But I said, we're going to take those at a major university with a professor. We're not going to take it for some coach who's teaching math, to take advanced classes. And then all of a sudden you get to college, you don't know what you're doing. So I think the thing that hurts the most, that the biggest change is the level of stress. And I know, not to throw anyone under the bus, but we as directors have created this problem. You know, there was a time, believe it or not, before state marching that everyone went and marched a region, and you might make a one, and whether you made a 1, 2, 3 or whatever, someone's mom made a cake, and the next day you ate cake, and you were done, and you worked on your Christmas music. There wasn't that competitive whatever. We competed for all state orchestra and all region orchestra and all state band, but that was an individual competition. There were no competitions, you know, per se. And I think we've done that to ourselves with WGI and indoor wins, and the list goes on and on. And our bands weren't as good as they are now. But I wrote the drill. I picked out 3 tunes from Hal Leonard. The senior girl did the color guard routine, and we put on a show and made a first division. And now we need 5 marching techs and a drill writer and a program consultant and a person to write them, make the arrangements, plus a percussion arranger, plus a front ensemble arranger. You know what I'm getting at.
Mhm.
We've created that world, and the bands are far superior nowadays. But are the jobs? The jobs might not be.
Yeah. Well, and like the number of people that we see leave the profession because of the stress or
Hmm.
because they, or can't balance the work life or the family life, it's gotten pretty high.
It has. And that's one kind of hidden secret about West Texas, is that there's a lot of schools that's not considered part of the gig. You still got your West Plains winning honor band and Pecos and state marching contest. You've still got those schools, and you've got 1As going to state marching and winning. But I would say 9 out of 10 schools, the superintendent just wants someone to care about the kids, play some good music, and everybody be happy. And I know plenty of directors, and I respect it. They live in that world, and they're okay with that. They're not sitting here, going, man, I wish I could be at state marching. What do I need to do to get to the next level? They're just going, wonder what I'm going to play for Christmas this year, the Grinch or Sleigh Ride? you know, and they leave the band hall at 4 o'clock every day, and they get there 15 minutes before the first bell. And there's no sectionals, there's no after school rehearsals, and they just do everything during the band class. Are they stupid? I don't know. They might be a lot smarter. They get the same retirement we get.
Yeah.
It's still 71% of whatever.
Well, I think that's like a balance point that we all have to find. And I've gotten pretty decent at good telling my staff, I'm like, hey, if you feel like you're done for the day, go home.
Yeah.
That's okay. Like, the job will still be here tomorrow. Oh, and that's something else that like I've had conversations with like former assistants, and because I'm a workaholic, I know I am. I'm type A.
You're built different than most people.
Like I just what it is, and this is a sad story. My staff, when my first set of twins, my first
Your
set of
first
twins,
set of twins.
when
He has
when
another family
twins-
somewhere or what?
Either that or he wants a second set of
No,
twins.
do not. So when the twins were born, um, I had to, well, my assistants, specifically one Victor, had to get into my work email because I was forwarding work emails like right outside the delivery room for the kids.
Oh Lord.
And like the kids were born, we left the delivery room and I was forwarding work emails.
You are definitely built different. When my son, my only child, was born, it was on August 5th, and I canceled the rest of summer band. I sent out a message, said, I'm sorry, kids, we're not doing summer band. I'll see you on the first day of school. And guess what? We still met a frickin' one. We did not need to do summer band. But yeah, I was that guy. It was like, nah, forget that. I'm gonna sit at home with my son for the next 2 weeks before school starts.
And so
shame on you, Jose.
Yeah,
shame
well,
on you.
That made me realize a few different things. I mean, it's just like taking
At least
some
you
moments. Yeah, taking some moments to step back. And like there was a story that we told. Oh, I can't remember who I told this just recently, but like our newest son was born on area marching contest day, and Alexa's blood pressure was ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's how. Yeah, I've gone through that with my daughter-in-law. It had to induce labor because it was getting dangerous.
When I did that leadership camp, I brought up like, we did this whole entire segment about defining success. What is a success that you've had? And I just left it at that. And we went around the room and we talked about different things that were successes, and we kind of defined what failure was. And I go, I almost failed at being a dad this year. And they're like, what do you mean? I go, I was successful in making the right choice for my family. And if I wouldn't have done it, I would have been a failure in a different way. I would have been unsuccessful. So, finding that balance and finding the meaning behind success and like knowing where to put that success.
Yeah. And are you still teaching?
Was just so high because you stressed me out.
No, ma'am.
Are you still teaching leadership camps?
No, I do it.
Oh, dang it. I'm trying to find someone to pick up the slack out here.
Hey, if somebody comes calling, I'll do it. But
okay.
He has to ask his boss first.
Yeah, I always ask her. Anytime I do anything,
Understood.
I ask her. So like I've done a couple leadership camps. This is I only do it when somebody asks me to. So, but I like doing them.
You've done like 2 this semester.
Yeah, I've done 2 this semester.
Yeah.
Which is like I like doing it. It's fun. It's also nice to see like the different perspectives from different like band communities and band cultures. And so sometimes it's a thing for me to take back home to our band hall.
Right.
So
no doubt.
That's really fun. Do you have a favorite band memory as a student or as a director, or both?
That's a good question. It seems like they just all run together after a while, but I would say musically playing Salvation is Created with 120 people on stage.
Whoa.
It's a pretty cool memory. That's a pretty cool memory to have 10 tubas and 20 euphoniums. And you could just feel the bones in your head vibrate. As far as a musician, I think, making finals and marching in Montreal Olympic Stadium, the first time ever for the Corps, that was cool. Marching in the Macy's Parade, as a performer, and marching in the Rose Bowl, our Rose Parade. Don't call it the tournament, the Rose Bowl Parade. They get that's real offensive to them. So I've got to watch myself. It's not the Rose Bowl Parade, it's the Tournament of Roses Parade. And so I'm doing that coming up, this New Year's. So those would be the good memories.
So how did you get into the Rose Parade, Tournament of Roses Parade?
You're going to love this. I just saw it on Facebook.
That's
Salute to America's band directors. There's a lady, Karen Sewell. Her husband had passed away, and she decided at this time they were going to the Rose Bowl because she decided, I just want to do a float. And so she worked with the people, and they said, "Yeah, you've got people who can pay for this." "Yeah, yeah, it's all set up." Said, and they go, "Why don't you get a band?" She goes, "I never thought about that." And so they had about 200 and something, the first band. And I actually applied at that time. And then things didn't work out, like COVID and different things happened. And financially, it didn't work out really well. So I pulled out and left my deposit. And then come the next round, they were going to do Macy's here about a year and a half past, you know, do the Macy's parade. And so I missed the deadline technically, but I wrote them this real sob story email about how I had applied and looked through your records, and I left my deposit there, and I'll gladly pay my deposit again, but I like a chance. I think Karen Sewell felt sorry for me and said, "Yeah, go ahead and do it." And then we were up to like 350 at that one, and this one we've got 500. So it's going to be a pretty honking big group, and you're marching 40 sousaphones, and 70
That's a
trumpets.
lot of people.
It's a
Is
lot of
Jake
people.
Heck doing that?
I think
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, and I tell you what, it's kind of like the Skywriters. When I went first, I was the only one from that part of the state that was dumb enough to just go do it by themselves. But then about 3 years later, we had about 20 people. So people follow other people. If you come back and talk, "Hey, this was fun," and that's kind of happened with Macy's. And people have asked me, said, quiet part out loud. They go, "Did you like have to audition? What'd you have to do?" Said, "Well, you send them a copy of your resume, and then as long as your credit card clears, you're good." It's not a real high pressure moment.
Well, it's the same thing with like it, I mean, literally what I just said with like leadership. Monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
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 The moment you make it okay to do those types of things, more people are okay with doing it.
Yeah. You're right. And I think it's gotten that way. Just Texas, when we did the Macy's thing, I think there were like 30 of us, and there's probably like 60 or 70 now. There's quite a few more from Texas, and some states just don't have as many bands. Wyoming, they might have one band director come, because they only have really two marching bands in the state of Wyoming.
Wonder what that's like.
Yeah,
Wide open ranges.
Ask Reed Atkinson.
Yeah.
That's true. I can ask Reed.
I lived in North Dakota for a year, so it's a different world up there.
Yeah.
It's a lot different. They don't do a whole lot of marching band.
Well, it gets too cold.
Oh yeah, it's. I saw it didn't stick, of course. But I saw snow in July.
Oh.
When the right northerner comes down for just 6 hours. And there was regular summers, but it was brutal in the winters. I mean,
I bet.
like
No, thank
negative 20 wind chills and stuff. So
Mm-mm.
you have to plug in your car, the heater that attaches to the radiator. You have to plug it in so your car will start the next morning. Otherwise, it'll freeze
Gosh.
solid in the block.
Our superintendent made a joke at the end of the year ceremonies about canceling school when it got sub 40 degrees.
Yeah.
Well, we did staff paper plates this year at our band banquet, staff paper plate awards, and that's one of the awards that Corbin got, was most likely to be upset about a snow day.
Well, our UIL it was March 5th and 6th this year.
Okay.
So we always lose 2 or 3 days between the beginning of January to UIL plus Team EA. So like we start like losing days pretty fast. And so anytime there's like any type of precipitation and cold weather, there's like a delay in the school day. And that, of course, we're first period. So they start during
skip you.
third. Yep.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
that time goodbye.
Yep, and he's in charge of our non-varsity high school group, and I don't know if you know this, Mike, but the non-varsity kids just need a little extra love.
They do. They need lots of extra love.
So he would always have like
He would crash out, as the kids
Yeah.
say.
he would have conniption fits.
That's funny. We just don't have the equipment to deal with it. The big joke at Abilene Wiley was every school in 50 miles would cancel school. And our superintendent said, if the moms can make it to Starbucks, the kids can make it to school. And so we would go, and that's changed now. They've got more where they do what Abilene does and whatever. But during the day, I used to think, because in the day you had to watch the ticker tape on the bottom of the screen. It was like watching the NBA lottery or something,
Yeah.
So oh man, we're still going to school. Okay, go to school.
Bummer.
So
Yeah.
you do a lot of consulting now. And so first of all, how does somebody get a hold of you if they want you to be a consultant?
They send up the bat signal. No. I don't have a logo. Most of them, it's just the network I've built. You know what I mean? It's they have my numbers and I've got their numbers. So there's not any. I mean, they could look me up on Facebook. It's got my picture on there, so they can figure out which Michael Lunney it is because there's about 500 of us. My favorite Michael Lunney is the math professor in Edmonton, Canada.
Let me tell you, man.
We're both Michael Anthony Lunney.
I hope someone asks him to clinic their band.
Yes, I'd probably send him a text on accident.
Yeah.
One number off. Now, Mike, let me tell you, there's a lot of Jose Sanchez's out there.
Yeah, I bet there are. It's kind of like Mike Smith in Wyoming.
Yeah, that's just the way it is.
It's just the way it is. Lots of Mike Smiths, lots of Jose Sanchez's. I understand.
Well, so now our head football coach his name's Jose Aguirre. So I get
so confusing.
Yeah,
for people.
The people don't understand that we're not the same person. So the head football coach and the head band director are both named Jose. So he gets text messages that are meant for me, and I get text messages that are meant for him. And so I've just started saying one of us is Jose and the other is Jose B. And so like that's now becoming a thing.
You get emails addressed to you as coach.
Yes, I'm just like wrong one.
Well, I fought that battle for a little bit because Abilene Wiley, the director, is Mike Lunney, and then for about 6 years, real Wiley High School is Michael Lipe. So Michael Lunney, Michael Lipe. We went to state marching and got introduced as Wiley High School from Wiley, Texas. I would get his state marching pictures. He would get my state marching pictures. So we fought that battle. It wasn't within our school district, but I think like Penders had just autofilled. Wiley, Michael, sure. So I just had self-addressed stamped envelopes in my file cabinet in a file. So if I'd get his bills, I'd throw it in. It already stamped, throw it in the mail, and just send it to him.
Wow. That's when you know.
Send it to Mike at Wiley.
Yeah. We had this whole routine. He'd call. I go, hey, Mike, it's Mike. How's it going, Mike? Doing well, Mike. How you doing, Mike? It was a good job, Mike. Then one time I'm directing my band, and I looked to the side for a second. There's a bus driver, a charter bus driver, got to go express. And I go, can I help you, sir? He goes, aren't y'all going to the airport to go to Chicago today? And I go, I'm not, but I bet I know who is. I said, band, give me a second. Hey, Mike, are you going to Chicago? Yeah, our buses haven't shown up yet. Let me let you talk to your bus driver. He's 4 hours to the west of you right now. And of course, they're based in Fort Worth, so they scrambled out a couple buses and got them fixed. But, something auto-filled, and they just drove all the way deadheaded, 6-hour round trip for nothing,
Yikes.
So
that's crazy.
It happens. It happens.
Speaking of mistakes, Mike, is there a mistake you've made that has made you a better educator?
I make plenty of mistakes. I love making mistakes. I don't know if there's one simple mistake that I've done. Well, I can tell you one for sure. As a younger teacher, I just ignored my woodwinds. I just gaslighted them. You know what I mean? It's like, just play whatever you want to play. I don't really give a crap. All right, brass players, let's work. And kept getting ridiculed for it. And finally, I decided that mistake was not a very good plan on my part. So I finally invited some really intelligent people to come in and teach sectionals. And I would sit there and watch them teach and take notes and ask them questions. So I think that would be the biggest mistake. The other one, if you want a real specific one, my very first trip, I was hired in January. My very first trip was to take the Throckmorton Band to Sweetwater, Texas to perform. And Jennifer, the tuba player, did not get back on the bus. And I just asked the drum major, I said, hey, is everybody on the bus? And she looked around, yeah, everybody's here. We left. My very first trip, I left a senior tuba player sitting on the steps. And this is before cell phones. So they knew we were going to Crystal's Pizza in Abilene. That was a big deal for our kids. So we get there's a message waiting for me at Crystal's Pizza. Said, your tuba player sitting in Sweetwater at the on the front doorstep. And you left her. So I had to drive one of the buses. It was only 35 miles, but still very embarrassing. So that mistake definitely sunk in where now it's like, I think I've got it right here. Yeah, I know you can't see it on the audio, but it's a clicker. You count with it. So every band, every briefcase had a clicker in it, and everything was checked verbatim because I was determined not to leave another student. So that would be my big mistake, I would say. Musically, I just make too many of them to keep track of. I just fixed today what was messed up yesterday. You know,
So, as a consultant, what are some of the things that you're seeing in other, like in band halls, and what are some things that you would suggest to any director to like fix those things?
I would say, and this is not trying to get business for me because I don't really want any more business. I'm okay with what I do, but they need to get clinicians earlier in the year because there's so many times I'll get a call and say, "Yeah, well, can you come out? When's your contest? We've got a week and a half." And it's too late to really fix anything. But like, there's a couple of schools in January. I'm working like January 5th and 6th. They haven't even picked their contest music yet. We don't go to contest until April. But I can get to the nuts and bolts and, hey, this is how we make a sound. This is how we're going to sit. This is how we're going to do our fundamentals. Because we all know there's no such thing as advanced fundamentals. There's only fundamentals. There's advanced situations that require stronger fundamentals. But there's nowhere you go and say, turn the page. Now we're going to do our advanced fundamentals. No. Start the note, end the note, sustain the note, sit correctly, play. That's all there is. That's all there is to fundamentals. And so I really wish more would invite people, even if it's just a friend, just to come to their band hall and just to listen, or even send recordings. But that would be my main thing to tell them. I think kids right now are smarter than they've ever been. I think that they're just busier than they've ever been. Before we had lots of kids that were just our band kids. That's pretty rare now. You might have 7 or 8 in your top band there that aren't in one act play and number sense and softball and basketball, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I kind of like it. I mean, my son was a varsity football player and did band and whatever. So it all works out. But I think that's the main thing for me is just get feedback earlier. If you're picking your music, make a recording of your band and have someone listen to it before you do something stupid. Because I've done that plenty of times where I've overprogrammed, and then the routine. Then you've got like 2 weeks till contest. You got to dump the march and play some little 6-note ditty from whoever to make things work. We've all been there, but that can be avoided.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like, ooh, I've been in that situation where I'm just like, I hope this makes.
Yeah. And I'll never say it in front of the kids, but when I hear something of that level, it's like, during the break, it's like, what are you playing that piece for? Why are you doing Prelude, Sicilian, and Rondo with your 2A band? Said, you're going to make a 4. I'd probably give it a 5. Just out of sheer spite for how stupid you are. For trying to do that with your band is said, not only is your band not strong enough to do it, I don't think you really understand the piece. Said, so it's going to take some work to grow both the band and you as a young director before you play something just because you played it at college. And those are some brutal talks, man. And I would never do that in front of kids, but if it's just one-on-one, I'll flay away some skin, because they'll remember it. They'll remember it, and they become better directors.
Well, you need that circle of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, you need that one person who's willing to smack you
Yeah.
to put you on the right track, and people are afraid of that because they're afraid of being exposed for whatever reason. But it also has to be a reminder of what it's truly about. And it's about giving the kids the best musical experience and education along the way.
Right.
So, and like, I'm not going to get up tomorrow and run a 5K.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you gotta train yourself up for that.
Yeah. Yeah. If you catch yourself in band in the position where the beating shall continue till the right notes appear, that's bad for everybody, because I know I've been there. And it's like by the time we get to contest, we all hate each other and we're just ready for band to be over with. And it's like, this was not beneficial for anybody. And those are the moments where I blew it. And so if I can help a younger director, and sometimes an old director, because we all make our mistakes, if I can help alleviate that, then that's worth more than teaching a B natural fingering, you know, or whatever. Try to teach the culture of the band.
So, because you're a consultant, you get around some really, really great up and coming band directors. Is there any band directors out there that like need to be recognized that you feel like are doing a really
Well,
fantastic
that's a
job?
dangerous question. That's
Ooh.
like that's like asking me who my favorite grandson is. No, I'm not going to answer that one. Because there's so many great teachers. Because as soon as it's like thanking people at a band banquet. You can do your list, and you're going to forget somebody who managed the concession stands, and they're going to be pissed off at you for the next year. But
Everyone's doing great, guys.
Yeah,
You're doing great. You're doing great.
yeah, I appreciate that. But I will tell them how good or poorly they do in private.
There you go.
We praise and ridicule in private on the Mike Lunney universe.
So what do you do outside of like the band directing thing and the consulting thing just to help you just like get away from it all?
Well, my one hobby, and this is going to sound like some kind of West Texas thing, is going to the gun range. I've got quite the collection of firearms that I've given most of them now to my son. Some of them are just absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know why I bought them, except we call them here in West Texas, we call them barbecue guns. They're guns you bring out at the barbecue just to show off that you have that gun. You know, like I have the 6-inch Smith & Wesson 629 revolver that Dirty Harry used. There's absolutely no use for that at all. I know guys that deer hunt with them, believe it or not. They put a scope on it and deer hunt.
My goodness.
I've got a 50 caliber handgun that shoots 50 caliber rounds. And in fact, the slide is loose until it warms up. And then most of my stuff is more like, you know, a Henry rifle, a 30-30 or a 44 Magnum. And so we'll go shoot. My son likes to shoot. So we do that. And that's a great reliever of stress. It really is. Just go shoot some paper. And I'm not some kind of vigilante. You know, I've got a concealed carry license, but I don't. You know, it's more bad things I think can happen from just people concealed carry. I've seen principals who've left their firearm in the bathroom.
Yikes.
You know, they'll sit down at the stall and put their pistol up on the toilet dispenser, and they'll get up and leave, and a kid will bring it to them. You know, so if you're going to carry, that's a lot of responsibility. Now, if I'm in a certain area and there's a certain thing I need to watch out for, then I will carry. When I drive in West Texas, be rest assured there's firepower in my vehicle. You know, and if I get pulled over at the DPS, you know, you're trained to give them your driver's license and your carry license and tell them everything you've got in that vehicle. And they ask, "What are you scared of?" I said, "Not a damn thing."
You and my father-in-law would get along very well. Well, like when
and the
we
DPS will
had,
always say,
yeah.
"Well, let's just make a deal. As long as you don't touch yours, I won't touch mine."
Yep.
That's a
That
deal,
sounds like
officer.
Great deal. Well, whenever we had the twins, I was really, really worried because like in my in-laws' house, at any point in time, you were no more than 5 feet away from another firearm.
He got better about this after the
Lord,
kids.
like in the open, like under the couch and
Yes,
stuck in a
it'd be
cabinet.
like in a flower pot, you know.
Yeah, everything I have is locked. In fact, right up here on my desk, I have a Smith & Wesson Shield 9mm that's in a lockbox. You know what I mean? But all I have to do is touch it to open it. And so, you know, especially with grandkids, but whatever happens, it's like owning a pool. Someone drowns in your pool, you're kind of responsible for that. You know, if it's a firearm, you are responsible by law. There's no gray area in that whatsoever. So this firearm was left open. Yeah, I was cleaning my guns and I left that one on the couch. And you know, that does happen, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a gun safe now.
Yeah.
Luckily.
But it was just like when I asked him if I could marry Alexa, it was just like he had a gun in the car.
He's cleaning his shotgun.
Well, yes. I didn't tell you this the other day, but when where were you? I took the twins over there and you were not with me. You were doing something.
I was judging something probably.
Yeah, you were judging, I guess. And I went over there and my dad came out and he was like, "Oh, so-and-so is going to come pick me up in like 5 minutes." And I was like, "What? Like are you going on a play date or something? I've never heard of this before." And he's like, "Oh, we're going to go down to the range and shoot." And like 5 minutes later, a dude shows up on a side-by-side, picks up my dad, and they drive down the road to the range that they have.
Well, I love it. I was
like, what just happened?
Hey, I'm so bad. My Nissan Rogue auto loads with the Abilene Indoor Gun Range when I get into it.
Yeah.
It just
Wow.
auto loads.
Yeah.
It knows where Mike needs to
It
go.
knows where I'm supposed to go.
that trombone player was playing D flat instead of D natural the whole
Couldn't
entire.
quite get
Yeah.
the fifth position.
Yeah, the fit.
But I'll tell you how
gun range.
paranoid I am with my gun safes. All my guns are in one safe, and all the ammo is locked in another safe. So you got to literally break into both safes, which are legitimately quality safes, in order to fire a weapon. There's no way you can just accidentally come across one. In fact, when I clean them, all the ammunition's put into the one safe and it's locked. There's nothing in the house outside that safe while I'm cleaning a firearm. Because I've got a good friend who accidentally shot himself about a month ago cleaning his gun.
See, this is
cleaning a Glock.
This is gun safety with Mike Lunney.
That's right. Hey, if you want to really get to it, Dane Richardson at Holiday?
Yes.
Okay. He is Trigger Maestro. I made up the name for him and the logo because I did it on AI. But he teaches gun safety, and he's teaching a course in Big Spring. So if you ever want to know anything about firearms or prepping for the apocalypse, he is your man. He is the Victory Garden from World War II. He hunts his own deer. If the worst comes to worst, I'll die with radiation poisoning clutching my portfolio, and he and his family will live on forever.
That's so okay. So I'm gonna plug this real quick.
Okay.
Because Zach. Okay. Do you know who Zach Santos is?
Yes.
Okay. So Zach Santos does choreography as a business, and he doesn't have any 1A clients. And he's told me this.
He wants a 1A client.
He wants a 1A client so bad. And he goes, I will do it for that school if they can get me a hunt on their property.
He just wants a hunt.
He just wants a hunt.
Easy.
He wants a hunt. And he's like, I will do choreography for a school if they can get me a hunt.
I bet I can make that happen. The one that pops to mind is Menard. With Rebecca Cook, gold medalist in 1A, the current defending champion. And there's this, it's Deer Central. When you drive down there, it has all the 10-foot wire fences because they grow their own deer and, maintain their wildlife ranches and so forth. That'd probably be an easy one.
He is all about that because he that's his thing. He likes hunting. He likes fishing. I think almost all the meat he eats through the year is game that he's hunted.
Most of it,
yeah. And I like to shoot, but I'm not a hunter. My son's a hunter, but I know ticks, hot weather, humidity. I want to go to the gun range, wearing my polo shirt.
Glamping. Yeah. That's what it is.
shoot my firearm, kill some paper, and come home. And that's my stress. If I have to I can field dress a deer, but if I have to do it, Lord have mercy. What a nightmare. You might as well ask me to do a marching band again for the whole year. It'd be
same number of ticks. Same number of
ticks. Yeah. It's just as painful, except the deer is dead and will not argue.
I'm imagining Mike with the dirty hairy gun.
Yeah, that's what I'm imagining.
Asking the deer if it feels lucky.
That's right. And I've got the matching 44 Magnum lever rifle.
Oh, it's so
it's a match set in a case. Yeah, so it's ridiculous.
Oh man. So Mike, what's in your ear this week?
As far as music?
Sure.
Yeah.
Anything that you're listening to.
Well, I took a 14-hour road trip to Hutchinson, Kansas this last weekend. So a very eclectic, a lot of old school drum corps. Aubrey Logan is one of my favorite artists on trombone. Maynard Ferguson, George Strait, Toby Keith, the Eagles, Billy Joel, I don't know, Dvorak, New World Symphony. I just put my playlist on shuffle, and I just listen for 7 hours. Just whatever comes on next comes on.
You said you said everything, and I loved every single bit of it.
Yeah.
Rip
everything
Toby
but rap,
Keith.
and I respect the people who love hip hop and rap, and it's just not in my comfort zone. So
that's how I feel about heavy metal. Heavy metal is
I would put that in that
stimulating.
Yeah, it's just annoying to me when you get to a certain age. The refrigerator shutting off and on can
I can't
push you over the edge. But heavy metal, I mean, you'd have to double lock all my gun safes. It just makes me furious.
I can't.
I like heavy metal.
Some people live in
Oh,
like
Lord,
that. Like,
Jose.
I know you do.
Well, okay.
I-
There's very little music that I don't enjoy. I find enjoyment in almost all genres. I don't
Yeah.
know
Kinda
why.
feel like what you don't.
Well, I do like Metallica. Would that be considered heavy metal? Or is that like more like brass tin metal?
No, I'm gonna say heavy metal
You think
because
so?
Okay.
I
yeah,
guess
give me
so.
fuel, give me fire, give me that which I have good.
Yeah.
yeah,
But
that's
that
heavy metal.
screaming
Sure.
ska bandish, whatever. I don't even know
Okay.
the genre.
Okay, you're talking about like death metal. That's a little bit
Yeah,
different.
yeah. So that's too much for me.
Yeah, they become all sorts of
I
There's
would need therapy.
there's a limit. There's a limit. There's some things I do enjoy, but there are
Well,
other
so
things
is
I don't.
there is in drum corps as well.
Yep.
There's sometimes I watch a show with like 25 chords and I have to leave by about the 20th chord. It's like I just can't do another right now. I've reached my fill of this aesthetic beauty, and I got to go do something else for a while.
Yeah, it's the 6A state marching
The limit
contest.
does
Yeah,
You're
exist.
like,
yeah.
oh. At some
Yeah.
point in time, you're like, I'm tapped out, guys. I gotta go.
Yeah, got to go. That's what I love about the 1A, 2A state marching contest. It's very not as good as 6A, 5A, 4A, but it's real.
hmm
I mean, those are kids who are showing goats that weekend at the county fair. It's real. Those kids come in with their eyes the size of dinner plates, because I've never seen a stadium that big. So I enjoy that.
I love the interviews after those too.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
I love that part.
yeah, because the big school kids are so articulate, and the
Mhm.
small school kids are so honest.
Yes.
Yeah, there is a difference.
Yeah.
There is a difference.
Yep.
Well, and Alexis saw all of the state marching contests. When I say all of the state marching contests, I mean from
I watched all
1A
of
through
it.
6A.
Yes.
So, is there something you wish you could bring back from a different decade?
From a different decade. I think just the low stress of not having as much to do within the job as a band director. I wish we could bring back that and the camaraderie. Not that we don't do that. I go to convention, I'll be at TBA, and I'll spend the whole 3 days maybe going to 3 clinics and a workshop, and the rest of the time hanging out, just talking with people. So we do have that, but that weekly camaraderie of, when you go to contest where you want everybody to do well. Think about that for a second. You want every band, if possible, to make a first division. And it's some of that we've lost through the recent decades.
So, like, we're doing a sassy camp this week, like
Okay, yeah,
today and tomorrow, and we do it in conjunction with the neighboring school, Salado.
okay,
And so, OPS results just came out for Region 8, and I've been fortunate enough that 2 of my pieces are advancing. And Salado won the March category, and my March came in second. And I turn around and I tell his name's Blake. I go, Blake, congratulations. And he goes, oh, thanks. He goes, I thought you were going to be mad at me. I go, why would I be mad at you? I'm like, well, of course I want my piece to win, but why am I going to be mad at you for your kids doing
Yeah.
great things?
yeah. And I think we have lost some of that. Not all of it, of course, but we have lost some of it.
I have to shout out one other person, Stephanie Schmidt
I was hoping you would
over
do
at
this.
Madisonville.
You go, Stephanie.
So Stephanie has been on a crusade to get one of her pieces to the state level of OPS.
Okay.
And we ran into her, and we had a successful year last year when it came to OPS. And Stephanie, we ran into her. Where did we run into her?
I wasn't with
Maybe
you.
I was just with her.
You were,
I ran into her at a contest.
Yeah.
And she goes, Jose. I go, what's going on, Stephanie? You having a good time? She was there. They were bowling and having a good old time. She goes, Jose, you know what? I have a piece that's going to beat you this year. And I'll go, you go on, Stephanie. You go ahead and beat my band.
Go off.
Yeah.
Queen.
Go off. And you know what? Her piece won first in our region.
She put her money where her mouth was.
And I sent her a congratulations text yesterday, and she was like, what are you talking about? She was, and I sent her the results, and she goes, oh my God.
That's awesome.
You
I
go,
love it.
Stephanie.
And like, it's all friendly and stuff. Like, I'm like, that comes back to this whole entire thing that like my band is getting better because other bands are getting better.
Yes.
And I don't know if you saw this. I talked to somebody else. Chris.
McClellan.
McClellan.
Chris McClellan.
Chris McClellan. Another great retired band director. But
Yeah.
we talked about this with him, is that how his friendship and friendly rivalry with Kennedale when he was over at Springtown, but people in that region were being successful, which upped the ante for each one of the other schools.
That's right.
And that's kind of what we're seeing in Region 8 right now. And I mean, the 3As are at it.
Yeah.
You know, there's consistently state advancing marching bands and stuff, but like now in the 4A, Robinson has been advancing, we've been advancing, and China Spring has been advancing forever and a day.
Mhm.
But because now there are 3 groups advancing, you can see each one of us starting to build off of each other's success.
Yeah.
And there's like that competitive thing, but like we're also kind of cheering each other on along the way.
Yeah.
So like when one of us wins, we all win. And that's kind of the way we've been trying to approach that.
Yeah.
And like, you're right, that some of that has been lost.
Yes.
So
It
I mean,
has.
that's something that's really important, that sometimes you just need to sit back and go like, that's really nice. Well, hey, Mike, I have some questions for you. Some quick fire that I haven't
right.
asked you enough.
You just asked this man a lot
All
of
right.
questions.
All right. I got some questions for you. Okay, Mike, what's your favorite season?
Fall.
Do you have a karaoke song?
No, I don't. I don't do karaoke.
You don't do
sorry.
karaoke?
I don't.
Oh,
I probably
neither, don't
should.
worry.
Yeah.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Invisibility. So if I
Do you
saw a band parent at Walmart, I could disappear immediately before they found me.
That's a great one.
All band directors feel that one. What is your favorite emoji?
Probably the laughing with tears.
Do you have a favorite comfort food?
Yeah, barbecue.
Ooh, what's your favorite barbecue place?
We have a place here at Jay's Barbecue that made the top 50. You know, this incredible barbecue place. But yeah, it's very rarely do I have bad barbecue. You know what I mean? But some is exceptional. And the Shed is here, and I don't know many of the places in other parts of the world. I know I've had discussions with members of the director's marching band who are like from Tennessee and the Carolinas, and there's always that my barbecue's better than your barbecue, and my wife's prettier than your wife, and whatever. there's always those benign arguments, you know. It's like, what are you talking about? But yeah, it's but barbecue to be my comfort food.
Do you have a favorite dad joke?
No, I'm not much into the dad jokes.
Oh man,
I'm just highly sarcastic when I do clinics, and it gets me in trouble quite frequently.
I live in that life.
Yeah.
Do you have a signature dance move?
God, no.
Mike's like,
do
Mike
the robot.
dance.
Yeah, Mike don't dance.
Do you have a theme song? If you had a walk-up theme song, what would it be?
It'd probably be Yakety Sax.
Do you have a coffee order?
I drink black coffee with one Splenda.
One Splenda.
One Splenda.
One Splenda. Wow.
I'm diabetic.
Wow.
So I can't have all the frou-frou, and they're great. And I'd love to drink them every day, but I can't have the milkshake with a little bit of coffee from Starbucks.
I get it.
Yeah.
Is pineapple acceptable on pizza?
No, not in any means. I worked in a pizza place for 6 years.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No. There's no way a hot dog's a sandwich.
Toilet paper over or under?
Oh, definitely over, because it's not a mullet. Mullets
Mike,
are not cool.
I'm about to say, Mike, did you ever rock the mullet?
No, I never rocked the mullet, but I had the 70s kind of big hair thing and the feathered hair parted down the middle. It was ridiculous, kind of BG look, you know.
Respect.
One of the Gibb brothers.
It was a sad time. It was a sad time in the late 70s. Fashion did not exist.
I would have to agree. Is a black belt and brown shoes acceptable?
I don't think it is, but I see it a lot.
It's not acceptable.
I see it pretty much nowadays. It seems like as long as it's clean and pressed and looks good, you can wear anything with anything. You wear
No.
jeans with a tuxedo top. Who cares? But for me, I'm like, no, just I just like a regular old suit, black suit with black shoes, or
Yeah,
In fact, I don't even own any brown shoes. All my dress shoes are black.
the Johnny Cash vibe. I get it.
Yeah, that's right.
Sousa, King, or Fillmore?
uh, King for my bands. Sousa is what I enjoy playing and listening to the most.
You have a favorite stand tune?
One written by Luke McMillan called Dark Force.
Ooh.
He gives it away free. You need to contact him.
Oh, it's on my list.
Yeah.
Is there a worse stand tune?
Oh, yeah, Land of 1,000. And probably maybe ahead of that is from my generation, The Horse. That was like our second fight song, and I hated it when I was in high school. But it was the years of University of Houston, Bill Moffat's Sound Power series. We had the discant trumpet parts, and we thought we were gods of brass. Yeah, it was ridiculous. But yeah, The Horse. But no one knows how to double tongue anymore, so no one really plays it anymore.
True. Do you have a favorite store?
Favorite store? HEB.
Yes. Yes.
Their off-brand generic food is better than the brands.
I would agree with that. Preach.
Here,
Yeah.
everything's better.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you had a spy code name, what would it be?
God. A spy code name. We'll just go with the Eagle.
Respectable.
That's a good one.
Okay. Do you have a movie you enjoy quoting?
Airplane. I've probably watched Airplane 30 times this year.
Oh, that movie.
Surely you can't be serious.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've got to tell you an Airplane story, though. When I was in the Sky Riders, went to the drive-in and we watched Airplane. And I was with a bunch of other guys from our horn line and ladies from our horn line, and Rich Garcia was sitting next to me. And I laughed at every joke in there. So this last summer, he flew in from California because he's an A&M grad. He grew up in the Valley. And he flew in for some family stuff. He drove up to Abilene just to watch Airplane with me. 40 years later, and I still laugh at every joke.
Hey, I'm
Don't call me Shirley.
Yeah, well, I made that joke to her.
He does that to me all the time.
Yesterday.
It was yesterday.
Yeah, my favorite
In the
joke in that
car.
whole entire thing, I think, is like, I speak jive.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. And the lady who plays the part is the mom from Leave It to Beaver, from the old sitcom.
I have a question for you. Have
Yes.
you seen Airport?
No, but
Like
I
the
know
movie that Airplane
I
is, like,
know what it's.
spoofed?
Yes, I know.
Oh, yeah, I saw all of them. It was in my generation. I saw them at the movies.
I love Airport.
Yeah, I saw all the
love that.
Poseidon Adventures, Towering
The
Inferno,
Poseidon, yeah.
all the disaster movies were like late 70s, early 80s. I saw them all because that's what we did.
own Airport, and
Yes.
I want you to watch it.
Okay, we can watch it this weekend.
Okay.
Burt Lancaster.
That's fine. That's great.
And I watched the first Star Wars in the theater, skipping rehearsal
Oh, that's
for summer
beautiful.
band camp. I was at Midwestern State. I was first chair trumpet, and I decided to go watch Star Wars because it came out in the theaters. It was 2 blocks away, and I got chewed relentlessly for that. Almost didn't get to play at the concert. But
Was it worth it?
it was. It was worth it. Francis Macbeth was our clinician.
Ooh.
I skipped Francis Macbeth's rehearsal.
Ooh,
That's iconic.
That's a big decision.
Well, at the time, he was just a guy that wrote some music, and he was a band director. Think about it. Yeah, now he's a god. And he was obviously good. Don't get me wrong. He was amazing. But yeah, he was kind of a fellow band director. But I was lucky at Midwestern. My director had John Zadekli come down, Claude T. Smith, Alfred Reed. Did Armenian dances with Alfred Reed. So we had all these incredible people. And my claim to fame was I cooked steaks. Because the band director, Robert Jorgensen, said, someone's got to cook steaks when we do the steak night for all the clinicians. And so he had a competition. He had us bring up our grills and cook steaks, and I won. So I got to cook steak for all these guys. And then I would just sit there and, believe it or not, I have a podcast. Believe it or not, I kept my mouth shut. He warned me. He said, just keep your mouth shut and just listen. And I got to sit there at the table for like 4 summers in a row and listen to these amazing musicians that are legends just talk about whatever they talked about. It's like band yap in its early existence.
Okay. How do you make your steaks?
Medium rare.
Okay, that's
and I
the
like
only
to,
right answer.
And I like
only
to,
right answer.
I like to sear them real hard on one side of the grill and keep it really hot, then cooler on the other side, and then you bake them to where it needs to be. And now I use a thermometer, to figure it out. But at the time, my dad taught me to use my hand.
Yeah.
If you do fingers.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, if you do all 4 fingers touching your thumb, then that's well done. So you'd put on a rubber glove, you'd push on the steak.
Yeah, well done. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's a
travesty.
Yeah.
Travesty.
Should be a death penalty. In Texas, it might be a death penalty in Texas for all I know. We have an express line.
Disrespect the cow.
Yeah, we have an express line, for death penalty here. So I don't know.
Do you have a hidden talent?
Probably not. I don't think so. I don't have a hidden talent. I don't have much talent to begin with, so nothing's hidden. Whatever I've got's out there for everybody. I wish I had a hidden talent.
If someone played you in a movie, who would it be?
Oh my gosh. Probably John Candy, but he's dead now.
John Candy.
Yeah, he's good.
But in his heyday, it would have been John Candy.
I love John Candy.
It's definitely not Tom Cruise.
Hey, don't sell yourself short. So
I think Mike could jump out of an airplane.
Yeah.
Or a helicopter.
I could. It's
on a motorcycle.
It's when you hit the ground that hurts, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have a guilty pleasure TV show?
2, as a matter of fact. One is Shark Tank. I've watched every episode of Shark Tank at least 3 times.
Wow. That's a lot of Shark Tank.
Because I just love it, because I'm really into finances and whatever, and I just enjoy it. So I really enjoy watching these entrepreneurs and wishing I was an entrepreneur. The other one is really bizarre. Law and Order. There's 20 seasons of it, and I'm at season 11 on my probably 5th rotation. But I love watching when you watch the early ones, because like Oprah Winfrey was on one, Julia Roberts was on one, Richard Gere was on one. All these amazing actors and actresses have been on Law and Order. And then you see as they progress through seasons, as people die off and they get a new assistant district attorney. But yeah, for me, Law and Order is the epitome of not really true crime, but those legalese shows.
Yep, I'm here for it.
We watch Law and Order SVU probably more than anything else.
Yeah, it's a good one.
We never talk about that. It's not on any list anywhere. But you always have it on.
Yeah, I always have it on. I always know what season I'm on based on her haircut.
Olivia Benson's haircut?
Yes.
Oh. The ADAs that's the one thing that drives me crazy about that show in particular, is like the ADAs, like they'll leave and then they'll come back, and then they'll leave and then they'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she's in witness protection, but then she's back. It's like,
it's interesting to take it, at least for me it is, take the deep dive and study those ones who have left and why they left.
Yeah.
And then they do come back. Sometimes it's nervous breakdown. Sometimes there's other opportunities. They've had detectives killed in the last show of the season because they were having a nervous breakdown and couldn't come back to work. So they killed them off, But you know what? I always tell people for the most part, there's nothing hotter than an ADA on Law and Order. Where do these incredibly fantastic models end up being ADAs in New York? I mean, give me a break. The first one in the first couple of seasons was this grizzled old black guy from Brooklyn. And all of a sudden they went, we need some eye candy on here. Let's get an ADA that just really looks good.
That sounds about right. Well, Mike, the big question that everyone wants to know.
Oh, no.
Is there a Dairy Queen in Abilene Wiley, or the community of Wiley?
Oh, yeah. There's lots of Dairy Queens.
Do you have a Dairy Queen order?
I haven't been to Dairy Queen in probably 10 years.
Well, let me ask you this, because you did mention that you have to watch your sugar. Was there a Blizzard order you did go to? Yes,
the Reese's Pieces. Not Reese's Pieces, but the Reese's Cups. In their vanilla Reese's Cups with Butterfinger on top.
Oh.
That's where my son stopped all that. He's a doctor here at Hendrick. And he said, you're going to have to stop all this. And I still get to have my little splurge here and there, but life is actually better, keeping healthier.
I cannot get behind the Reese's Pieces.
I love Reese's Pieces. It hurts me that you say that.
Made famous by E.T.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no chocolate in them. I don't know if that's why you don't like them or not.
That's probably it.
It's the shell. It's the shell that
like
makes me
the
weird.
shell.
I don't like the shell.
Yeah, I like the Reese's cups. So I'm with Jose. I don't like the Reese's pieces
I
as
like Reese's
much.
Pieces.
Great minds think alike.
Apparently.
Small minds think alike.
Yep.
So I always tell my staff, small minds think alike. That's why we all get along.
Well,
funny.
I think that's all I got, Alexa.
I definitely don't have anything else.
Mike, do you have anything?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you having me on here. It's been fun.
Well, we appreciate you, the West Texas legend, Mike Lunney.
A legend in my own mind.
And everyone needs to make sure they check out the Ask Mike podcast.
Yes.
Come aboard. We've got tens of listeners.
Tens of listeners.
When I'm
That's
done,
okay.
I'm
So
going to
do
be
we.
100 air by the time I'm done with this project.
Great resource. I've listened to the podcast, and like there are things that I take away from it, and I've been teaching for 16 years. You've had some fantastic guests like Stephen Cox and my favorite Fredericksburg band director with the F band
That's right.
logos.
I've got an F band shirt. I made him give me one.
lovely.
I go down to clinic like 4 times a year. Said I've got to have an F band shirt because he would tell the kids tomorrow you have to wear your F band shirt. I go, what the hell's an F band shirt? He showed me a picture. I go, that makes sense. It's an F band shirt.
very
Brian's
literal.
good people.
Yeah, he
He's
is.
really good people.
I first met him when he was at Spur, I think it was.
Hmm.
1A school.
Mhm.
And John Sweet was at Jayton.
Oh man, John
We
Sweet.
just talked about that.
Yeah,
yesterday.
they were
He's-
like 10 miles from each other in 1A schools in the middle of nowhere as young teachers, and it was hilarious. They'd come to the Big Country Marching Fest and bring their bands, and it's funny now to see John Sweet at Washington State University and Brian doing all the cool stuff he's doing, and they were just young first year teachers. In fact, Brian applied at Wiley for the choir job coming out of college. We didn't
He
take
did
him.
Sing. Yeah.
We didn't like him.
Yep.
I always tease them. Said, yeah, we decided to hire someone different. We didn't like you, Brian.
We went in a different direction.
Yeah. different.
Oh, man.
Anywhere from you, Brian, was a different direction, and we went that direction. So I love giving him a hard. He's like a brother. I like giving him a hard time.
He's such a good guy. Like he really is.
Didn't y'all just eat barbecue together?
Yeah, we did.
Oh.
We just had
Drove all the way
interstellar.
to-
Yeah, I drove down to Austin to have barbecue with Brian and Jacob, the assistant director
Yeah.
over at
At
Burnett.
Burnett?
Yes,
Jay, is it Picked?
picked.
Picked. Yeah,
Yes.
he's in Madison. Works with Madison
Yes.
Yeah,
Scouts.
well, Madison guys. He's an up and coming band director. He's really doing the things, and he's doing it right. Like he's asking anybody and everybody to help guide him, and shout out Jacob if he gets this far along
Yeah.
in the podcast.
And this is how old I am, guys. I remember Jacob when he was a freshman at Ryder High School in Wichita Falls.
Yeah.
And he wanted
Well,
he came up and goes, I want to be a band director someday. How do you do this? As a freshman, he was asking questions. Most freshmen are like, where's my water jug?
Yeah.
But he was actually asking very intelligent questions as a 14-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah, most freshmen are going like, are these the right shoes? And they're Crocs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Sure.
yeah, I mean, we had barbecue this past Saturday, and we had just a good old time. And so, shout out to those guys for really putting in the work. I mean, but
Hey, well, if y'all get out here, my son does amazing barbecue. He and they're I forget the name of their team. They're all doctors, but they're like the medical trauma barbecue force or something like that. But they enter contests and things. But they have amazing barbecue. So if you ever get out here, you got some free barbecue.
don't tempt me. Well, we'll make a trip.
Yeah,
I have
Jose
driven
will get in the car.
many hours for barbecue.
it's not that far from Gatesville. It's right next door in West Texas standards. I mean, it's only 3 hours. I mean, that's nothing, man.
Just 3 hours.
Just 3 hours. That's nothing.
Thanks for listening to Band Yap. We'll see you next time. Bye.
We out.
Don't forget, FanPledge is changing the game for band fundraising. Shawn Murphy can help you ditch the product sales and still bring in record-breaking support for your program. And with the 10% guarantee, there's zero risk. Give Shawn a call at 903-948-7348 to get started. One more time, 903-948-7348. FanPledge, fundraising that actually works.